Welcome to Ichiraku Ramen, and thank you for joining me for another journey into the world of shinobi. Before we begin, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who listens, supports the channel, and enjoys these stories. Today's story is part 3 of The Son of Two Heroes. An early intervention by Iruka Umino changes the trajectory of Naruto's life forever. Given a proper adult influence and a real father figure from a young age, Naruto drops the prankster dead last mask and grows into a boy who truly takes after the Fourth Hokage. Smart, perceptive, and remarkably collected, this Naruto carves his own legendary name into the shinobi world as a devastatingly powerful seal master. While he still possesses his indomitable Uzumaki spirit, fierce ambition, and unwavering loyalty to Konoha, he is no longer impulsive. Instead, he faces his enemies with a sharp wit, carefully analyzing every situation before he acts. The shinobi nations aren't ready for a mature, serious Uzumaki who combines Minato's calculating genius with his own fiery heart. This is a fan-made story inspired by the world of Naruto. All characters in the original universe belong to their respective creators. This narration is created for entertainment purposes as part of a transformative storytelling experience. The story itself was written by Darling in the Fox, and full credit goes to the original author. If you would like to read the original version, the link to the story is included in the video description below. If you like my content and want to keep up with future updates, hit that subscribe button and don't forget leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It not only helps me but helps with YouTube algorithm. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Chapter 22. Kisame was thoroughly impressed at the capability and skill of Maida Guy. A man was stalemating him with pure taijutsu. He certainly was a formidable opponent. The Shark Man's only real problem was that not only did he face Guy, but Kakashi of the Sharingan, along with a Konohagakure Junin with possession of the First Hokage's wood style. He'd let the Uchiha boy pass, as it was Itachi's wish to face him. What had pissed him off was when the Nine-Tails brat managed to slip by him to support Sasuke. "Are you here to kill me, Sasuke? Going to take me out?" the elder Uchiha asked in a stoic voice. "No," the younger brother said, reaching up and tightening his headband. "We're gonna take you down," said Naruto as the blonde appeared beside his friend, dual tri-pronged kunai drawn and ready. "You can try. You obviously lack the resolve to become strong enough to face me. You couldn't even kill your best friend," spoke Itachi as he stood from his throne. "The strength we have when we fight together is far greater than the strength your eyes possess, brother," replied Sasuke, spitting the last word with a dangerous venom. "We've got questions for you, Itachi. You gonna talk, or should we beat it out of you?" Naruto asked, his eyes focused on the feet of the elder Uchiha. He remembered the day Kakashi had taught him how to face the Sharingan. Flashback. "Alright Naruto. If you ever have to face Itachi, you don't have a choice but to fight differently. You cannot afford to make eye contact. If you do, Itachi will waste no time putting you under a genjutsu. That man can cast genjutsu with a simple pointing of his finger. You should only fight him if you have either Sasuke or I as backup. Focus on his feet and torso. Read his body's movements and react accordingly. It's difficult, but doable, and you don't have a choice." Flashback end. The fate of the Mangekyo Sharingan is one of blindness. The power that slowly destroys itself. So there's more than one price to that kind of power. The younger brother replied, drawing his sword. Naruto. "Yup, got it." The room was suddenly filled with clones as the duo made their move. The blonde clones littered the room with sealing formula. Sasuke and Itachi locked eyes, beginning an unseen genjutsu battle. Naruto threw a kunai and appeared behind the elder Uchiha, and slammed his blade into the man's temple. Itachi fell dead before disappearing in a murder of crows as the world around the blonde began to melt. Itachi appeared before him, and shot his kunai straight for the blonde's heart. The scene shattered as Sasuke's Sharingan forced Naruto from the genjutsu of his brother. "Your genjutsu is impressive, kid brother, but what will you do now?" he asked, kicking Naruto into the wall and slashing his kunai through the man's stomach. He appeared before his brother and quickly battered down the younger man. He pinned him to the wall and moved his hand to Sasuke's eye. Uchiha Madara once took the eye of his brother. Implanting it into his own, he achieved a power beyond your comprehension. The eternal Mangekyo, a light that will never fade, never weaken, and never flicker out. That is why I kept you alive, to have your eyes as my replacement." As he finished, he ripped the man's eye out. He was forced away as lightning blast from all of the tenketsu on Sasuke's body, signifying the use of his porcupine technique. As the younger brother struggled with the pain, and forced himself to his feet, Itachi placed the taken eye in a jar filled with a liquid to preserve it. He then approached slowly, intent on removing the other eye from his sibling. A clone popped up from behind the Konoha shinobi, grabbing hold of him, and holding him in place for the eye to be removed. As the traitor began to push the eye out of its socket, the world around him shattered. Sasuke stood once again, both Sharingan burning as he stared down his brother. Itachi collapsed to his knees, holding his left eye. "You broke through my Tsukuyomi? How?" "I've trained and strengthened myself to deal with your incredible genjutsu," he replied. "Then it seems genjutsu will get us nowhere," said the elder, closing his right eye and preparing the black flames. Sasuke simply smirked in response as Naruto appeared beside the elder Uchiha, kicking him away toward the wall. Before he could even impact it, Sasuke appeared, kicking him toward the ceiling. As the man flew upwards, he smiled, and landed feet first on the ceiling. As he hung there, he watched as Naruto appeared beside his brother. The blonde placed his hand upon the younger man's shoulder, and smirked as Sasuke prepared a Chidori. "Fuinjutsu. Reverse summoning," he whispered, and Sasuke disappeared, and reappeared next to his brother. His lightning blade impacted where his brother had stood, forcing him through the ceiling. Sasuke was immediately on the roof in pursuit. The brothers stared each other down, before both weaving through hand seals. In unison they shouted, "Fire style, fireball jutsu." The two massive firestorms ripped into each other, Sasuke's quickly taking the upper hand. "Amaterasu," rang Itachi's voice as he conjured the black flames at will. They quickly consumed Sasuke's fireball, burning it away. "This is nothing," replied the younger Uchiha, running across the outskirts of the roof. The elder brother ignited his Amaterasu, burning a path behind the younger man as it chased him. It quickly caught up, however, and set Sasuke's Junin vest ablaze. Sasuke shed the vest, and before Itachi could reignite him, Naruto appeared by his side. "Fuinjutsu. Reverse summoning." They disappeared, and reappeared in the internals of the hideout. "Naruto, let's do it." "Right," he replied, and two clones formed beside him. "Fire style. Dragon flame jutsu," yelled Sasuke. "Fire style. Fireball jutsu," yelled the original blonde. "Wind style. Great breakthrough," came the call of the first clone. "Wind style. Great vacuum bullet," rang the voice of the second one. What occurred next was an absolute nightmare of a firestorm. It ripped apart the rooftop, fire scorching everything in its path. Itachi was forced to jump away as the massive column of fire ripped into the sky. Itachi stood looking on in awe at the destructive power of the duo. Itachi crouched shakily over the edge of the massive rip in the roof. His breathing was labored and his Sharingan in his right eye had reverted to normal. Sasuke stood shakily by Naruto, the blonde beginning to feel the effects on his chakra reserves. The teleportation fuinjutsu he had developed still took quite a toll on his reserves. "That Amaterasu of yours seems to have taken a lot out of you," spoke Sasuke, glaring at his brother. "Don't play like you're not out of chakra yourself, younger brother. It seems your blonde friend will have to do the fighting for you now." "Naruto," said Sasuke, glancing at his teammate. "It's time. I have to do this alone now." Naruto looked at Sasuke with a slight sadness in his eyes. "I understand. I don't approve, but I understand. Watch from a distance. If he kills me, don't let him get away," the younger sibling said. "You have my word," Naruto replied, and disappeared from the battlefield. "Now your singular advantage is gone, foolish brother. I'm out of chakra, but if you truly believe I would come here to kill you without being prepared, well, you wouldn't be as smart as I thought." He stood, facing down his sibling with all his might. He stepped forward before he spoke again. "This jutsu cannot be blocked, dodged, or evaded. I'll destroy you with this," he said angrily. A distance away, Naruto sat atop a rock watching them. "So you've really done it, huh, Sasuke? I almost doubted you when you told me you'd mastered lightning, let alone created this jutsu." The younger sibling channeled lightning to his hand before leaping to the highest point of the rooftop. This jutsu is called Kirin, he said as the lightning above him reached a peak in reactivity. I simply guide the lightning down from the heavens, he said with a small chuckle. A massive dragon of lightning formed above him, and this caused Itachi's eyes to widen in shock and awe. Now be gone with the thunderclap. With this he swiped his hand downward, sending the massive bolt of electricity at his foe. With a massive explosion their battlefield was obliterated. Sasuke stood shakily, he watched the battlefield and saw where his brother lay. He fell to his knees and his Sharingan deactivated. He simply bowed his head and let out a small sigh of relief. Is this the end you've envisioned for me, brother? Came the voice of his enemy. He stood and his brother rose as well. I'd definitely be dead if I hadn't have had this, spoke the man, as an astral projection of a massive skeleton from the torso up formed around him. I'm going to reveal to you my final trump card. This is the Susanoo. Muscle and armor began to form around the skeletal body, the monstrous jutsu coming to life. This also took root in these eyes of Mai. Is that all you had, Sasuke? The battle is just beginning. He and his astral protector began to march forward to his sibling. Now I will take your eyes, foolish brother, he said before suddenly letting out a loud cough. His hand came up and he clutched at his heart. He coughed more before falling forward and spitting a large amount of blood into his hand. My illness, time must be almost up. Sasuke took advantage, and quickly tossed a set of kunai with attached paper bombs. This resulted in a large explosion, but through the smoke, Itachi marched ever forward. Thinking quickly, the younger brother jumped forward, attacking with his sword but was instantly repelled. How? Are you invincible, Itachi? He questioned in his mind. For the first time since that night, Sasuke felt real terror. He slowly backed away, mind racing and panic setting in, until he found himself pressed against a wall. As Itachi reached out for his eyes, the words of his mother filled his mind. He had too many unanswered questions. He forced everything he had left into his eyes, conjuring chakra from pure willpower. His Sharingan sprang to life, and he managed to cast one final jutsu. Sharingan. Slow time. The siblings found themselves in a small and calm forest clearing. Itachi looked around in slight surprise before focusing in on his brother. Itachi, I have one question for you. The man replied stoically. We have an hour here before this jutsu fizzles out. Itachi, I met mother. She spoke words to me that I cannot get out of my head. Orochimaru brought her back with the summoning. Impure world resurrection. Mother said to me, that you love me unconditionally. And that she was unsure on why you chose the path you did. I can tell a lot of this has been fabricated. Too many loose ends. Too many things don't add up. It may have tricked me had Naruto not put doubts in my head and opened my eyes long ago. But as of now, I ask you, why did you kill the clan? What is this all about? Why did you leave me all alone, brother? Itachi's eyes widened at the mention of his mother, and his gaze softened slightly at his brother's explanation. Sasuke, Itachi, I'm here for the truth now, nothing else. When I went home after destroying Orochimaru, I found every hidden compartment in the clan compound. I searched every single nook and cranny, until I came upon the documents. I know the clan was planning a coup d'état. That's why you killed them, isn't it? You had always loved the idea of peace. You knew it would spark a civil war, that would spiral into a full-blown world war. Tell me the truth, brother. Sasuke spoke slowly, moving his gaze to the sky. I see you know. If I told you I killed them under orders from the Hokage, what would you do? The elder asked, resigning himself to see how his brother would react. To see if his brother could be trusted with the truth. He had faith in the abilities of Minato's son, and between him and Sasuke, Itachi knew they could and would protect the village. Well, that was if Sasuke decided to continue protecting and working for the village that took his family. He loved his brother, and he always would, no matter the younger siblings' decisions. But he also loved the village, and he would protect it. Orders from the Hokage? Yes. Here, look into my eye. Accept my Tsukuyomi, so that we may extend our time. Sasuke did as instructed, and the two found themselves in a genjutsu inside of a genjutsu. Here, Itachi explained everything to his younger brother, including the dangers of Danzo, and explained why he loved the village so much. By the end, Sasuke knew and accepted what had happened. Itachi's Tsukuyomi expired, and this sent them back to Sasuke's quickly fading genjutsu. Itachi, I can accept what you did, but by no means can I forgive you. You should have found another way. But your goal, after the massacre, to protect the village from the shadows? I will uphold that goal, and I will take the mantle of responsibility from you. I will take it upon myself and Naruto, to go to the Hokage and handle Danzo. You may run, and hide yourself away, to live the rest of your life in the peace you wanted so badly, brother. Sasuke said, Itachi smiling in response. The elder brother looked at his sibling, before pulling their foreheads together. Sasuke, no matter your choices, no matter your actions, from here on out, I will love you, always. With that the genjutsu faded, and Sasuke stared at his brother. Go live in peace, Itachi. Maybe I'll come visit someday. I'm sorry, Sasuke. You see I'm very sick. I'd love to have you visit though. Sorry little brother, maybe next time. As he spoke he reached out just like old times, and tapped his finger to his brother's forehead. With this final act, the traitorous ninja, the most notorious missing nin from Konohagakure, and loving elder brother of the last Uchiha, collapsed and died. Sasuke slid slowly down the wall he leaned against, his body shaking and his mind reeling. He felt such a wild storm of emotions he could barely handle it. Itachi, as he whispered the name of his brother, tears began to shed from his eyes. Sasuke, came the call of his blonde-haired friend, as he arrived at the scene. Are you alright? Yeah, all alive? Something is different with you, what happened? There's a lot to explain, Naruto. Alright, well let's meet up with the others and get out of here. Can you help me up? Yeah, I got you, buddy. Naruto said, looking Sasuke in the eyes. Sasuke, your eyes? What about them? Naruto pulled his headband off and used it to show the last Uchiha his reflection. They're different, he said, trailing off. Mangekyo Sharingan, was all that Sasuke said. So first of all, Akatsuki members Hoshigaki Kisame and Uchiha Itachi are dead? The Hokage asked to the newly arrived team. Yes ma'am, all have been taken out. Yamato, Guy, and myself are responsible for the death of Hoshigaki. Naruto and Sasuke handled Itachi. Confirmed Kakashi. Where is Sasuke now? She asked, eyes shifting to Naruto. He's in the hospital being treated for chakra exhaustion and burns by Sakura. He'll be here shortly. We have a lot to discuss with you privately, ma'am. Naruto explained. Alright, fine. Yamato, Kakashi, Guy. You're all dismissed, ordered the female Hokage, and as the trio exited the door, Sasuke stepped through. Lady Hokage, he greeted. Junin Uchiha, please sit, you as well, Naruto. She said, motioning for the two to be seated. Naruto tells me we have a lot to discuss? Did you find out something from Itachi? I found out everything from Itachi, he said cryptically before he and Naruto began to recount the battle. Once they arrived at the appropriate point in the story, Sasuke took over and explained everything Itachi had told him, along with informing her of his own personal choice to continue protecting the village. I see. I shouldn't be surprised that old Warhawk would do something so reckless. No, not reckless, that was borderline treason. He went so soundly against the wishes of the Hokage. Sasuke, Naruto, I'm assigning the two of you and Kakashi to put together a sting operation on Danzo. I'd prefer him captured, but lethal force is authorized. Understood, ma'am. I have a question if you don't mind, said Sasuke, his voice all business. Go ahead? How difficult would an eye transplant be for you to perform? Excuse me? Sasuke immediately explained to her everything behind the Mangekyo Sharingan. That's disturbing at worst, and interesting at best. I could do it, but I want to make sure it gets done right. I need to properly examine the eyes and nerve endings. I'm assuming you brought back his whole body? Yes. Then I'll need to examine him for a while as well. Sasuke, it will be a while, but we will do the transplant. Do you already possess this Mangekyo Sharingan? The last Uchiha's reply was to simply activate his Sharingan, and let her watch as it morphed. Yes, he said quickly after she gave him a pointed look. Alright, well, go get some rest, both of you. You deserve it. What do you have for me? Asked a figure who stood in a tree overlooking the route headquarters. Scouts report route numbers to be around 200 shinobi, sir, said an Anbu member who had landed beside him. Good, alert Kitsune and Inu. Have them rendezvous with me at point 11. The figure spoke. Yes, sir. The figure now stood on a cliffside overlooking the compound. Two more mask-wearing figures landed beside him. Hawk, one said as they arrived. Kitsune, Inu, glad to see you're on time. It's not like it's an everyday thing, Inu said, lightly complaining. Oh, I didn't take you for a liar, sensei, said Kitsune. Now, let's not be rude. Inu laughed lightly. You two are surprisingly calm. Let's just get this done, Hawk said with an implied glare in his voice. Always have been the eager type, haven't you, Hawk? Inu said teasingly. Shut up, let's go, replied Hawk, and the group leapt down into the compound. Just then, the moon reached its peak, and the clock struck midnight. Judging by the sounds of battle I'm hearing, I'd assume you're here for me? Asked Danzo to the three Anbu before him. By order of the Hokage, you are to be secured. Dead or alive, you're being charged with multiple counts of treason, along with being responsible for the deaths of the Uchiha clan, said Inu. What proof do you have? The elder shinobi asked. Hawk extended his sword out at the man, pointing at him. Itachi's word. By telling you these things, Itachi is a traitor to Konoha. It seems he told you everything before he died, didn't he? It seems, you alone really are special. Don't you dare speak his name, Danzo. Hawk spoke. You never were a calm one, Sasuke. I don't know why Itachi felt the need to let you live. Petty emotions only hold shinobi back. The elder spoke. Come quietly, Danzo, and you may be allowed to live, spoke Kitsune in an almost pleading tone. He may be a traitor, but this was still a fellow Konoha shinobi who had been close friends with the late Third Hokage, at least at a time. Never, you and your Hokage will lead this village to ruin. With this, Danzo began to unravel the bandages around his arm. This greeted the three Anbu with the gruesome sight of the many Sharingan eyes implanted in his arm. You bastard, shouted Hawk, who had nearly lost his control at this sight. Sensing that he needed to rein his friend back in, Kitsune called out. Sasuke, calm down, we have to be smart about this. Uchiha Sasuke, I'm going to take both of your eyes and add them to my collection. Danzo dashed forward at the shinobi, intent in striking them down quickly. He drew back his fist, swinging it forward with all his strength. His hand simply impacted the ribcage of Sasuke's Susanoo. So this is the Susanoo? At this, the Uchiha simply batted the man away. As he landed, Sasuke's anger took hold, and his left eye shot wide open. Amaterasu. The black flames quickly burned the man away, leaving nothing behind. After which the raven hair man tossed aside his mask aside, while blood began to drip from his eye. Sasuke, we were supposed to try to capture him, shouted Inu. I thought you would know better than to think that could take me alive, Hitaki. Danzo said, as he showed himself behind the group. Seeing as the enemy already knew his identity, Kakashi cast his mask aside as well. Danzo, long time no see. And you, the elder said, turning to Kitsune. There's only one person in this village with that color of blonde hair. At this, Naruto drew his kunai and took a fighting stance. Those kunai as well. You really are his son, aren't you, Uzumaki Naruto? So you knew? I figured the elders knew. You could have at least made my life a little better. Your potential as a powerful weapon for the village was wasted when Sarutobi chose to not let me take over your training. Well, I'm really glad he didn't. Are we done? It seems all that is left is to fight. The elder replied. Naruto, Kakashi, I know for a fact I landed a killing blow with Amaterasu. Something isn't right, be careful, said the raven-haired man, his emotions now reined in. Right, they replied in unison. Wind style. Vacuum bullets. The elder shinobi said as he blasted a barrage of air bullets at his targets. The three shinobi quickly reacted on their own. They split apart, all hitting different corners of the room. A tri-prong passed dangerously close to the elder's head, and as soon as it passed, Naruto was behind him. The blonde quickly slammed a kunai into each of his shoulders. With the man momentarily restrained, Sasuke and Kakashi appeared on his sides. Chidori, they yelled in unison, and both ran a hand coated in lightning through the man's chest. The killing blow landed, they stepped away. It's useless, came the man's voice from the other side of the room. Sasuke immediately appeared behind him, his body flicker even faster at this point than it had been when he fought Naruto. He positioned his sword to carve out the man's heart when a sealing formula crawled up his body. Danzo moved to stab him, only to be launched away by Kakashi. The blonde man arrived by his friend's side and quickly countered the seal with one of his own. Danzo, you're an idiot for trying to use fuinjutsu around a seal master, Naruto said judgingly. Now that is impressive, to so quickly undo my seals. It seems you're her son as much as you are his. Enough talking about them. I dug deep recently and deducted that you were responsible for holding the Uchiha clan back from defending the village against the Nine Tails. A move that would have certainly saved many lives, as well as rebuilding the village's trust in the Uchiha. It may have even helped prevent the deaths of my family. Your crimes against the village continue to come to life, Danzo. Lady Tsunade will have to deal with it. You're sentenced to death. Kakashi said with a hard tone. Naruto appeared at the elder's side, cutting into his left arm as the man barely managed to avoid a lethal blow. As his body moved backwards, he was intercepted by Sasuke's sword cutting through him. The man simply disappeared, reappearing beside Naruto. He swung hard with a kunai, but thanks to Naruto's reflexes, he managed to redirect the blade, but was still stabbed through the shoulder. Fuck, he shouted, flickering away across the room. You alright, Naruto? Yeah, all alive, sensei. The blonde said, ripping the blade from his wounded shoulder. What the fuck was that? I know we got him that time. Wait. Sensei, look, a third eye on his arm has closed. He said, noticing the trend. Meanwhile, Sasuke had already jumped in and re-engaged the elder. Danzo ducked quickly under a sword swipe, while weaving hand seals. Wind style. Vacuum bullets. Sasuke barely managed to leap away, dodging only 3 of the 5 air projectiles that had been fired at him. One ripped across his cheek, the other tearing into his shoulder. Gah! He let out a grunt in pain. Amaterasu! He screamed, more blood trailing from his eye as he managed to just miss setting the man ablaze once again. The man then quickly moved to attack. He brought a kunai to bear, and moved to push it into the last Uchiha's chest, only to be launched away by the impact of a Rasengan. As he flew away, he caught sight of a special kunai that sped past his face. Before he could even hit the wall, he was hit in the back by another Rasengan. This time launched back toward the raven-haired man. He was intercepted by a Chidori through the heart courtesy of Kakashi. Unfortunately, he had watched Kakashi take position, and had already activated his genjutsu. He popped up behind the copy nin, running a kunai into the man's shoulder. The legendary ninja's battle instincts being the only thing that helped him dodge quick enough to avoid fatal injury. Taking the wound in stride, the copy nin swung around as his hand burst into a Chidori. He managed to glance the attack along the man's chest, but it was nowhere near deep enough to cause death, or even serious injury, other than the tingling sensation the electric shock would no doubt leave. As Danzo moved to swing at the nin once again, a kunai impacted the ground beside him. He was promptly sent flying by a harsh punch thrown by Naruto. You alright, Kaka-sensei? Of course, he said, and gave his student a reassuring eye smile. Danzo stood, analyzing his situation. 4 of my eyes have closed, but I am in a situation that if I do not win, I will not be able to escape. He took his fighting stance once again, and prepared to fight his death battle. Come, show me your rumored power, he said, addressing the 3 nin before him. Gladly, Sasuke said with a snarl, Susanoo roaring to life around him. Suddenly, his vision blurred, and he was struck with immense pain in his eye. Gah! Sasuke, if you keep going like this you'll lose your vision. You need to hold back, calm yourself. Naruto said, worry evident even in his scolding tone. How about we show off that new combo? Fine, the Raven said in response. Kakashi, stay behind us. Wind style. Open destruction. Fire style. Searing migraine. Danzo was significantly caught off guard. He hadn't expected the 2 men to be capable of what most certainly seemed to be at the very least an A- rank combo. Ninja art. Massive firestorm. The 2 yelled in unison as the jutsu they had launched came together. Everything in its path was incinerated, the wood of the room burning away in almost an instant. The metal beams that held parts of the base up, heated to such a degree that they twisted and melted. Danzo was completely erased in the blaze. The roof caved in, and the large complex collapsed on itself. All 4 ninja found themselves standing atop a pile of rubble, just as the early morning sun began to cast light over the village. Danzo looked down at his arm, and watched as his 5th eye closed, sighing slightly. The 3 attacking nin all took stances once again, when a crowd of root ninja landed around them. Kakashi, Sasuke, handle Danzo, I'll handle crowd control. He moved through hand seals before the other 2 launched at the elder. He finished his sequence and used his jutsu. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, 6-point barricade. A large purple barrier appeared, locking himself and the root ninja inside. The 12 root nin surrounded the blonde Junin, weapons drawn. Surrender Jinchuriki. Listen. You're all fellow Konohagakure shinobi, and I don't want to kill you, but if you continue to follow Danzo's orders, I won't hold back. He said, and quickly whipped kunai around the enclosed barrier. We are loyal to Lord Danzo, surrender now Jinchuriki, or we will attack. Damn, I didn't want it to be this way. Naruto sighed. Sasuke. Right. The Uchiha replied to his sensei, both of them bringing a Chidori to life in their hands. A chain of lightning shot between them, and Sasuke's eyes locked on Kakashi, while the copy nins did the same. Both used their Sharingan to synchronize their chakra, and use a technique Kakashi would normally use with a shadow clone. The two ran at the elder, the chain in position to take him apart at the waist. The man simply jumped over the technique, and landed behind Sasuke. Kakashi, he yelled. On it. Kakashi replied and disconnected his side of the Chidori. Sasuke's chakra took hold of the massive chain, and brought it around like a whip, smashing into Danzo and slicing him deeply in the torso. To finish it all, his chain launched the man toward him, and his porcupine technique turned the elder into a pincushion. Standing across from them now, Danzo watched his sixth eye close, 6 down. Even if I beat these two Sharingan wielders, I'll need to keep enough power in reserve to take on the Uzumaki. The elder thought to himself as the Sharingan battle continued. Gah! Came the pained scream of a root agent as he took his last breath. A tri-pronged kunai having just been shoved into his heart, and quickly ripped back out. That's 4 down. Please don't keep doing this, it's not necessary to throw your lives away. Naruto pleaded with his technically fellow Konoha shinobi. Just fight Jinchuriki, we have no interest in your words. Fine, I can't keep my comrades waiting. Let's go, don't blink or you might die. The blonde said, his voice taking on an icy anger. He didn't even bother using his substitution, simply flickering in between kunai, and shoving them into chests and throats alike. Naruto quickly bathed his small battlefield in blood, and took a moment to catch his breath. He surveyed the scene for a moment idly, wondering how his father dealt with the pressure of killing 1,000 shinobi in a few seconds. As he turned to help his teammates, he was greeted with another, larger group of root nin that the other Anbu units had failed to take care of. The clang of kunai striking kunai filled the air as Kakashi and the elder crossed blades. The older man grabbed the other's wrist, and brought his foot around to kick at the copy nin's side. His foot impacted hard, cracking a few ribs and sending the masked man flying. He was caught by his student, and the raven-haired man took over. Danzo quickly engaged the Uchiha, and a battle of blades began anew. Sasuke ducked under a kunai swipe, and brought his sword around his back in an attempt to cut downward into the man's back. A quick dodge put Danzo at the advantage, and he bolted to stab the Uchiha through the chest. The raven sidestepped, and jumped, spinning in the air and running his sword's blade across the old man's back. Danzo tripped slightly, and felt the shift in the air temperature. Fire style. Incinerator blast. Yelled Sasuke, blasting the man's back with fire at such a close range there was no time to dodge. Kakashi. The raven yelled, knowing his sensei was already back up. Right. Lightning style. Chidori Senbon. The two yelled in unison, peppering the area with the electric Senbon, forcing Danzo to be struck by them the minute he appeared. It was no killing blow, but it did damage and definitely slowed him down. Sasuke's Susanoo burst to life around him again, and muscles and skin formed over the skeletal form. He gritted his teeth in pain, but forced himself through it as he drew back his bow. He shot an arrow that ripped straight through the bandaged man's chest. Kakashi and Sasuke watched on in annoyance as the man faded once again. When he appeared, Sasuke went at him with all forms of self-preservation disregarded. He swung wildly with his sword, and fired off fireballs and used Chidori spears against the man. Kakashi quickly picked up on what the raven was trying to accomplish, and quickly joined in. As soon as the elder's attention shifted slightly to the masked Junin, a purple skeletal hand wrapped around his torso. The man's eyes widened in shock, and Sasuke grit his teeth in pain. He squeezed hard, and obliterated the man's body. As soon as he reappeared, the copy nin was on him. landing blows rapidly as the elder attempted to fight both ninja at once. I may be forced to use the Koto Amatsukami. If we come close enough for it to be necessary, I will make use of it. However, I need to save it for use on the Hokage to turn this mess around. I cannot wait any longer than today, else I risk the events transpiring now getting out amongst the shinobi ranks. At this moment, Sasuke landed his palm on the elder's back. Chidori's sharp spear, he called, and the elongated Chidori burst forward, cutting right through the man's vitals, and as with before, he faded away. Damn it, only one more eye. If this goes sour, I'll use the genjutsu on the Uchiha. The man decided. He then coated a kunai in wind chakra and charged the Uchiha. The last survivor smirked, and coated his blade with a Chidori. They charged each other, both shoved a blade through the other's torso. Nearly a minute passed, as the two locked eyes. Go now, join Itachi. As he finished speaking, Kakashi's own lightning blade ripped through his chest. He smirked, knowing he had taken the Uchiha down, and was unharmed. He then coughed, suddenly realizing that he had been tricked. You knew about Izanagi? You put me under a genjutsu, clever. Kakashi and Sasuke quickly pulled away, and Danzo also made distance. He had immense injury, but could hold out for just long enough. Quickly, he unraveled the bandages from his head, and revealed Shisui's Sharingan. I'll use Koto Amatsukami on the Uchiha, and then sacrifice this eye for Izanagi. His hands flashed through seals, as he moved forward slightly knocking rubble away with his foot as he did. His last seal completed, he pushed his chakra to the eye, and was met with immense pain when a tri-pronged kunai was rammed straight through it. Return to the darkness, and never see the light again, said the blonde yanking the blade out. But how? That rubble you tripped over was my kunai. So much for being an experienced shinobi. You're over with Danzo, your arrogance brought about your death. Accept this, and go to the afterlife. With those final words, Naruto planted the kunai back in the elder's skull, this time through the temple and then again separating the spine from the skull. Danzo was dead, and their mission was complete. He turned to the others, a neutral look on his face, with some worry mixed in. You guys alright? Chapter 23. Hey brat, the large white-haired man said as he greeted his recently awakened student. Good morning Jiraiya-sensei, the blonde said groggily as he pulled out a carton of orange juice. Any progress with that jutsu? No sir. Between the Itachi mission and the whole Danzo fiasco, I haven't had a day off in weeks. Ah, as is the life of skilled and important shinobi. Indeed, the blonde replied, putting toast into the toaster before turning to face his sensei. So what's up? What brought you here? What? I can't just drop by and visit my favorite student. If you were just coming by to see me you wouldn't have gotten here so early. So what's going on? Well kid, in 3 weeks I'm leaving on a super secret and important stealth mission. I want to take you back to the training complex and train you more for these few weeks. Alright sensei, I'm in. Good, meet me at the complex tomorrow, alright? Understood. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, the blonde made excessive amounts of progress. He had completely deciphered the first 3 sealing formula, and now was stuck on the 4th. He was struggling to get past it. Kid, you're diving too deep into it. Take a break, and let your mind develop everything you've learned. Not everything you do needs to be finished right away, sometimes in life you have to sit on things for a while. Ah alright sensei, Naruto said sliding his chair back from the desk. He turned to his teacher and smiled. A spar then? Sure. At the end of Jiraiya's last week in Konoha before his mission, he found himself sitting with Naruto. The two sat back to back, sharing a popsicle, both of their large scrolls set to the side. They sat in a field atop the cliffside the complex was built into. They had just finished a spar, and had gone outside for fresh air. The Sannin found himself extremely proud of the guts his charge had. Naruto had spent the last 2 days almost non-stop in the gauntlet, which is what Naruto had taken to calling the massive complex maze of moving training posts. His reflexes seemed to be faster than ever, and Jiraiya had no doubt that when this young man finally cracked the flying Raijin, he would have no trouble using it in combat. The blonde was battered and bruised, and his clothing slightly ripped up as well. A week's worth of taking on the dummies at faster and faster speeds, along with multiple daily spars with a Sannin had taken its toll on his body and clothing. Jiraiya smiled fondly thinking about the student who currently leaned against his back. I'll protect you no matter what, Naruto. He thought to himself. Finally, the larger man spoke to his charge. You've been working hard, kid. Everyone has taken notice. The absolute willpower you've shown is impressive. At this rate, that Hokage title might have your name on it. You're doing great, and you've stuck to your path. You mean people are finally acknowledging me? Asked the younger man tiredly. Of course, kiddo. Kakashi, Tsunade, Iruka, and even Sasuke all acknowledge your power. But the power you possess that is more useful than any jutsu is the willpower you hold in your heart. You really think I've come that far, sensei? I'm still not at your level. The blonde asked as his leaned further back against the massive Sannin. Naruto, you'll be at my level in no time, of that I have no doubt. Minato and Kushina would be beyond proud of you, kiddo. Thank you, Jiraiya-sensei, it means a lot. He replied as his eyes dropped closed. I'm glad I made you my student. I'm glad you're my godfather. The younger man said, trailing off as he slowly fell asleep against the back of his mentor. I'm gonna come back to watch you grow, kiddo. I promise. Jiraiya thought to himself as he relaxed as well, but stayed sturdy enough to hold up his charge. The sun shone brightly down on the two, and they lay there for hours. Naruto slept soundly against the man who had been instrumental in making him who he was. As night finally overtook the clearing, Jiraiya collected the blonde and brought him to his room in the complex. The sage wrote out a quick note and made his way to see the Hokage before he took his leave. The note he left read, "See y'all later, kid. Minato was the closest thing I ever had to a son. When I look at Naruto, it's like I'm looking at my very own grandchild, and I can't help but believe in the man he is. If there is anyone who can bring peace to the world of shinobi, it will be Naruto. And if it isn't peace, then it will be the closest thing to it, and that's for sure." The large man said, turning away from the other Sannin. Now, I ought to get going. Wait, Jiraiya, do you have to go? Of course, someone has to get intel on the Akatsuki leader. I'm the only one who can. Wish me luck, princess, he replied, as he held his fist into the air, before turning it into a reassuring thumbs up. See ya. As the toad sage left his village, the princess he had always chased after let her tears fall. Naruto awoke groggily from his sleep, and quickly climbed from his bed. He walked to the Sannin's room in the kitchen, trying to find his teacher before remembering he was due to leave today. He then noticed the Sannin's note and frowned slightly. He made his way out onto the only part of the complex that stuck out of the cliff and stared into the sky. He then thought to himself, you left before I could say goodbye. Stupid pervert, be safe, sensei. Naruto decided to head home and take a long shower, as well as tend to his houseplants. He couldn't ask Rika to look after them forever. Whistling, he made his way through the streets of Konohagakure toward his home. Naruto. A voice rang out, a familiar figure running over to talk with him. Oh, hey Kiba, what's up? Nothing much, how have you been? I heard you made Junin. Yeah, that was a while ago though. How about you? Any progress? No, not really, my mission count is still too low and I don't have enough team-led experience. But you're not the only one getting stronger. You and Sasuke aren't out of my league yet. Ah, I see, he replied laughing. Yeah, how's your team? Shino and Hinata? They're good, me and Hinata are actually together now, I don't think her dad likes me. The Inuzuka said, scratching the back of his neck. Hey, good for you guys. As shinobi, you never know what might come next, so it's good to find love sooner rather than later. The blonde replied with a bright smile. Thanks buddy. Well, I better get going. I've got a B rank to go on. See ya around Naruto. Later. With that, the blonde continued his way through the village. He made a quick stop at a produce stand, and bought an apple to eat along the way. Naruto? Asked a familiar voice as the blonde passed by the barbecue joint. Hey there Shikamaru, Ino and Choji too. How have you guys been? Pretty great actually, the larger man said happily. I wish I didn't have to do so many missions, but not bad. The Nara said. Other than having to deal with these two, I've been good. So is it true you made Junin? The Yamanaka questioned. Yeah, Sasuke as well. Oh wow, so Sakura is the only Chunin from Team 7 then. Yeah, that would be true. Man, what a drag, there's a lot that comes with being a Junin. That's true, but we handle it. So how are you guys holding up after? Well, you know. Not having Asuma around is kinda rough, but we've all mostly come to terms with it. Thanks for taking care of that bastard Hidan. Of course, I wanted to thank you as well, Shika. If not for your information, I wouldn't have been able to take him down. Meh, no problem. Alright, well we better get going. See you around, Naruto. Ino said, and the group took off. 5 minutes of walking later, and Naruto found himself at his front door. Grabbing the handle, he found it unlocked and made his way inside. He was greeted with the brilliant view of Rika's well-toned posterior as she bent over watering his plants. Yo, he said lazily. Slightly startled, she jumped up and turned to face her company. Hey Naruto, how are they? He asked. Good, I watered them just like you asked. Are you back for good? She questioned. Nah, I'm just here for a warm shower. The water at the training compound is only cold for some reason. He replied and laughed lightly at the unusualness of the water always being cold there. Oh, well I'll let you take your shower then. Thanks Rika. Maybe drop by later? Sure thing, she said, rocking on her feet before making her way out the door. Anbu, fetch me Team 7 immediately. Yes ma'am. The Hokage was only forced to wait a few moments for the arrival of the team. Team 7, you've got an S-rank mission. You leave in an hour. The case cage has been captured by the Akatsuki. Gaara, what do you mean he was captured? I mean what I said, Uzumaki. It's your job to bring him back, she said with a very serious tone. The blonde man went rigid before his resolve steeled in his eyes. Yes ma'am. Good. Now gather your gear and head out. Yes ma'am, came the chorus of the 4 shinobi before her. Rika was frightened by the frantic running around the apartment Naruto was doing. She had dropped by as he had asked, only to find him in a hurried panic. Naruto, what's wrong? I don't have time. Rika, super important mission. Naruto, what's wrong? They got Gaara, okay? They got him, and I wasn't there. I'm wasting time packing extra gear. I need to go now. Normally blonde shinobi has all his gear ready to go at a moment's notice. However, all of his pre-packed gear was stored away at the training complex, where he had been spending much of his time. In his normal composure, he would have gone straight there to get it. But his worry and panic over Gaara's situation had thrown him off quite a lot. It was uncharacteristic of him to get this flustered by any situation. Konohagakure's campaign against the Akatsuki had been going so dramatically well, he hadn't even considered the thought of losing someone to them. There hadn't been a single casualty from the actions of the Akatsuki since Asuma. Naruto, if you go like this you'll get yourself killed. I'll be fine, I need to. He was cut off when she slapped him across the face. A mixture of anger and worry grew on her face as she held his head. She forced him to look straight at her. You need to calm down, think, and be careful. These guys managed to take on the case cage. You have to use that awesome brain of yours. I know for a fact that if this wasn't Gaara, you'd be much more yourself in this situation. You're being uncharacteristically panicked, and you need to calm down and think like you normally would. I'm terrified, you're facing people that took on a cage. But I know you have to go. Because not only is he an ally, but he is your friend. I know you won't let harm come to him. Naruto stopped his panic. His brain and body calmed themselves at her words. Thank you, Rika. Naruto, you could die on this mission. I don't want to regret this. As she finished, she quickly leaned up and kissed him. Be safe, and come back to me. I'll tell you about this scarf when you do, she said, holding the burnt orange scarf in front of his face. Now go, she said as she disappeared in a body flicker. He stared at the spot she had stood, a slight smile creeping onto his face. I'll be back, I promise, he said quietly to the empty apartment before flickering away to find his team. Sasuke leapt away as the flames of a massive explosion licked at his back. He turned, and saw the onslaught of clay flying beetles coming at him. His eye bleed lightly as the ribcage of the Susanoo surrounded his body and stopped the explosives from causing any damage. He sighed in relief, and his Susanoo deactivated, only for his eyes to widen as a massive bird made of clay screamed toward him from the sky. Kamui, came the voice of his sensei as he sucked away the bird to a separate dimension. Are you okay, Sasuke? I'm fine, thanks Kakashi. Good, let's get this guy. Meanwhile, Naruto found himself extremely happy Lady Chiyo had come along. With her help he was able to focus on Sasori. There was nothing against Sakura's skills, but she was still only about Chunin level in speed. This meant she had no capability of dodging the puppet user's attacks. He also knew he could count on Sasuke and Kakashi to retrieve the case cage. His tailed beast may have been ripped from him, but Naruto held out hope. At this moment, the puppet user chose to use his army of 100 puppets. Sasori was skilled, and Naruto's clones couldn't get close. He knew it would take one quick catastrophic blow to take this guy out. He might be able to do it with his Rasengan, but he knew someone who could crush the man's entire body with a single punch. Sakura, Chio, I'll make an opening, be ready. Right, they replied in unison. He peppered the whole army with his kunai, and decided it was now or never to use his substitution to the max. Replacing with kunai after kunai, he used the Rasengan to make his way down the middle of the army. Sakura followed closely behind his trail, with the old puppet user guiding her moves. He burst through the opposite side of the puppet wall, having used the last of his substitution. He landed on his feet, and Sakura launched over his head, and came down with a massive heel drop to Sasori's torso. The man's puppet body shattered, and he was no more. Alright, good work, let's go support the team, he commanded. Having dealt with Deidara, the combined might of Team 7 easily being enough to handle the former Iwa Nin, Chio now sat before Gaara's lifeless body. I was inspired by how you treat this boy, our case cage, as one of your closest friends. You, Uzumaki, and this boy Gaara. You will be the future. Lend me your chakra, so that I may give my life for his. Chio, I can't ask you to. She cut him off quickly and spoke. You don't need to ask. This is my choice, and my way of entrusting the future to you and Gaara. I could never give a damn about the village. But being around you, listening to how you feel about Jinchuriki, I've learned a lot. To think an old lady could be taught so much by a youngster. Now come, let me borrow your chakra. Yes, ma'am, he replied solemnly, trailing off. They sat in silence as Chio did her work. Naruto watched as the life slowly drained from the woman. As she fell back, Sakura caught her, but she was dead the moment she landed in the girl's arms. Sand Shinobi began to arrive as the case cage slowly came back to consciousness in the land of the living. As he sat up, he was greeted with a mop of blonde hair. He immediately recognized the long blonde bangs that framed his friend's face. Naruto, he said lightly, it's me, Gaara. We came to rescue you. Your friends and Shinobi have arrived to help as well. Although they are a little late to the party, the blonde said with a sad chuckle. I thought I died. You did. That lady gave her life to save you. She put her trust in the peace between our villages in you and I. Lady, Chio, gave her life for me? Yes, she did. Naruto, help me stand. Yes, sir. The blonde replied, lifting the redhead to his feet. The case cage stood shakily, and began to address those around him. Everyone, pray for Lady Chio. May she be forever remembered, and rest in eternal peace. With that, the entire force of shinobi bowed their heads, closed their eyes, and prayed. Naruto, thank you for coming to help me. Obviously I'd come help. You and Sasuke are my best friends. I'd do anything for you guys. Originally, you wanted to kill me, but you've grown on me. You ought to come visit the idiot more so he doesn't pester me so much. Commented the Uchiha who stood beside the blonde. Thank you both. I wish the best for both of you, and I look forward to our villages working closely together. The case cage said, shaking the hands of both shinobi. Thank you both for being my friends. I've become a very different person due to the lessons you both taught to me. Anytime, Gaara, Naruto said with a smirk. I'll always help out my friends, you know. Team 7, it seems congratulations are in order for your mission to rescue the case cage. Well done, Sakura, you managed to save the life of the case cage's brother as well. I'm proud of all of you. Good work. Kakashi, Naruto, and Sasuke. You've all been hitting high-ranked missions back to back. Take a month off, the Hokage said, addressing the freshly returned team. Thank you, ma'am, the three males said, as they made their way out of the office. Sakura stayed behind to assist her mentor with her duties. As Naruto left, something clicked in his head pertaining to the flying Raijin, and he knew he had to get back to it right away. He sprinted down the hallway to leave, and almost ran headlong into Rika. Hey Rika, I know we need to have a super important talk and all, but I have to do something now and it's imperative I do it right now. He whipped out a piece of paper and scribbled directions to the complex on it. Come by in the morning, he yelled, as he handed her the paper and ran off. The girl smiled lightly, before speaking under her breath. Weirdo. Naruto sat at his desk in the complex once again. mind reeling as he tried to wrap his brain around the complex theory of the last seal formula. He had completely reconstructed the third formula, which had pertained entirely to the time side of space-time theory. With the other three out of the way, he could completely focus on the fourth kanji. This one represented tear. It was what made the movement through space-time possible at all. With this, he was able to figure out exactly how the four formula worked in tangent. It essentially boiled down to speed through a space-time tear. Speed being the first formula, space being the second, time being the third, and tear being the fourth. The user would use chakra to shape and form the tear in space-time, and use it to move through. It was much like if you folded a piece of paper in half and cut a hole through it. When it is unfolded, the distance between the holes is massive, but if you fold it, it's like stepping through a door. He spent the next 7 hours laboring away at his desk. Slowly through the day, papers and drawings accumulated on and around his desk. Quickly the room became a mess of fuinjutsu scribblings and math equations. Having told Rika of the location of his secret complex, this was the sight she was greeted with when she entered his study. "Naruto?" she asked, slight worry showing in her blank voice. His hand shot up and was held in a motion for her to wait. "Hang on." He spoke seriously. She heard him mumble and curse under his breath, when suddenly he shot out of his chair. The man stood rigid, hands planted on the table. "No way," he said in disbelief. Suddenly he jumped up, fist in the air. "I fucking did it. I got it." He sprinted to Rika and picked her up, spinning her around in his excitement. "Naru, what did you do?" she said, having trouble getting the words out as he spun her around wildly. "I figured it out. I cracked the code." "What code?" He stared at her a moment in confusion. Suddenly it clicked and he realized she had no knowledge of his work on the flying Raijin. "Look Rika, you gotta keep this a secret, but I've been attempting to learn the flying Raijin. It's a technique developed by Senju Tobirama, the second Hokage. It was further improved by Namikaze Minato, the fourth Hokage, and it is what got him the title of the Yellow Flash of Konohagakure." "Naruto, that's incredible. Can you perform it?" "Not yet, I haven't tried. I had to bust my way through tons of fuinjutsu formula and spacetime theory, but I've finally figured it out. I can try it out tomorrow, but for now, it's time for a long overdue talk between us." "Alright, and Naruto?" "Yes? You can put me down now." Oh right," he said laughing as he set the girl back on her feet. Slowly they chatted and made their way to the kitchen. "You know it's 6 in the morning, right? Is it? Oh wow, I should probably sleep. But I'm still wide awake right now. There's plenty of time to talk." "Okay, perfect. Let's go sit on the couch," he said as he guided the woman to the sofa, and both took a seat. "So before we talk about anything else, you owe me a story." "Oh, that's right. Well, my father used to beat me on a daily basis. He'd leave me in the cold outside our house, in an attempt to hide my bruises. I was so cold one night. I was so sure I was going to die. But I met you, Naruto. I met you, and you changed everything for me. I saw a blonde boy, with a smile that split the world. I remember seeing you, in your black sweater, brown pants, and your stupidly bright orange scarf. You were like a symbol of hope to me. Everything about you in that moment shined bright. You walked up and asked if I was cold, and I remember stuttering out a yes. You wrapped me up in that coat of yours and wrapped your scarf around me. You gave me the gloves on your hands as well. You took me around the village. When it began to rain, you opened your backpack and held an umbrella up for me as we walked. Just trying to cheer me up. You were so kind. I was so happy. And then the next day all I ever heard about you was bad things from the villagers, our classmates, and their parents. I was so worried that if my father heard I was around you he'd beat me worse, or maybe even go after you. I didn't want that, so I ostracized you. I avoided you and tried to forget you. But you were still the kind boy who changed my life. Someone who I could never forget. I had a crush on you for a while as well, and eventually Ryuko befriended me. She got me to go out and do stuff. Eventually an Anbu witnessed my father's actions, and the Hokage stepped in. My dad was a chunin, and he ended up getting thrown into a prison. My distant uncle was notified and he came back to the village and looked after me a while, but eventually he left again and was killed on a mission. When I saw you and Ryuko got together, I was just so happy that the both of you were happy. Rika, you're pretty." Eyes wide, Naruto thought to himself, I just said that aloud. "Are you stupid?" She giggled. At a moment like this, that's all you have to say? Thank you, Naruto. Sorry, I was listening though, it just popped into my head, and Rika, I care for you as well. I think Ryuko would be happy with us being together. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you want, maybe we could be, together? I'd love that. She smiled. This scarf you gave me sparked so many things in my life. It's like my very own orange thread of fate. But here we are, and not only do I have your scarf, I have you now too. I don't know why I can't remember that day, but it was so long ago, and now that I know of it, I know you're the one I want in my life, Rika. He spoke, before extending his hand and lightly taking hold of her scarf. Our stories seem to have been intertwined since the beginning, so might as well let them merge now. He said, and pulled her close to him via her scarf. Carefully and lovingly, he planted his lips on hers, sending sparks through both of them. The toad sage sat inside the mouth of one of his toads as it made its way into a megacure. Why'd I have the sudden feeling that I need to be proud of a certain blonde? Oh well. Back to writing it is then, he thought to himself. The sage was making the finishing touches to the new book he had begun writing after Naruto had finally beat him in that spar. It seemed like so long ago to the old sage now. He remembered watching over the boy after he first met him, and he had no doubt now. That child, no, that man would be just as, if not more legendary than Minato ever was. And if someone could bring about peace or anything close to it, it would be Naruto. Be safe, brat. He continued his writing, and after a while the toad notified him that they would soon be inside AIM. What will I name this book then? We're here, Lord Jiraiya. Alright, thanks for the ride. See y'all later. The toad simply saluted before disappearing. The sage began walking into the village before stopping in his tracks. He quickly whipped out his book and began scribbling. I know. The Tale of the Prodigal Son. Fitting for a book loosely based on the life of Naruto. The Sannin smiled widely as he put his notebook away and made his way further into the village. Chapter 24. The Tale of Jiraiya the Gallant. Well, now it will end a bit better, I hope. The final chapter, I'll call it The Frog at the Bottom of the Well, drifts off into the great ocean. Just barely glorious, but glorious indeed. Oh, that's right, what should I name the sequel? I wonder, let's see. The Tale of Uzumaki Naruto. Or maybe, Namikaze Naruto. Yeah, that has a nice ring to it. Sorry I couldn't be there for your upcoming birthday, kiddo. Naruto threw a kunai, and it impacted the target across from him. Channeling his chakra, he activated the flying Raijin. The blonde appeared before the target, and suddenly he collapsed to one knee. Pain shot through his body, and vomit filled his throat. Gah, damn it, that hurt. What am I doing wrong? It takes so much to rip open the hole in space-time. Using my chakra to blast through ends up taking so much and causing me a great deal of pain. He thought, analyzing the results in his mind. He didn't even want to stand back up, it hurt so much. Suddenly he felt a large hand land on his shoulder. His eyes shot wide, and he stood quickly. Sensei, I didn't even sense you, he said, trailing off as he realized no one was there. What the hell? I could have sworn that was. He thought. He placed his finger to the ground and stretched his chakra over the village. No, he's not back. The blonde went back to his notes, and soon after, resumed attempting his technique. A few tries later, and no progress made, Naruto realized it was time for a date with Rika. He quickly flickered away from the complex to her house to pick her up for their meal. Tsunade, so it's really true then? He's really gone? Yes, I'm sorry, my dear. It is the truth, the elder toad said sadly. I see. Anbu, fetch me Kakashi. Yes, ma'am, a masked figure said. It then dropped from the ceiling and disappeared from the room. Only about a minute later, Sakura stepped into the office, confusion slowly overtaking her face when she saw the toads. Lady Tsunade, what's going on here? She was cut off quickly when Kakashi appeared before the Hokage. Ma'am? The copy nin asked. Kakashi, Jiraiya has been killed in battle. I need you to go get Naruto and bring him here. Lord Jiraiya has. Yes ma'am, right away. The masked nin said, quickly flickering away from the office to fetch the blonde. Lady Tsunade, is it true? Is Lord Jiraiya really? Yes, it is, Sakura. Now, please go, this is something that Naruto needs to hear in private. Yes ma'am, will do. I'll come back later. So there I am, kunai in hand, and I swear I've got that pervert right where I want him. No escape possible. and he turns into a freaking toad. It was crazy. The blonde told his new girlfriend as he recounted a tale from his early training with the sage. The brunette giggled loudly and smiled at him. That sounds like quite the tale, Naruto. The blonde spun around in his chair to look at the doorway of the restaurant. He had sensed his sensei coming and waited patiently. Hey Kaka-sensei. Hey, Naruto, the fifth has called for you. The Hokage? Is it important? I'm kind of on a date. Naruto, it's a top priority. Kakashi said after thinking a moment. I'm sorry Rika, I had to go. Would you like to come along? He said as he turned to the woman he was with. Can I even? The scarf-wearing female asked. If you really want, I suppose it can't hurt. Now let's go. The three stood outside the Hokage tower, and Naruto was stunned to see Gamabunta sitting outside, with Gamakichi atop his head. Hey guys, what are you doing here? Did something happen? The toads simply stared back at him blankly, trying not to show any emotion. However, the blonde could sense chakra, and he could tell by the feel of everyone here but he and Rika, that there was something definitely wrong. What's going on around here? It's nothing, let's go. Kakashi replied quickly, as he continued into the tower. Strange, Naruto said questioningly. Rika turned and gave him a soft smile, before they both continued inside as well. Is this the student of Jiraiya boy? Huh? And Elder Toad? Yes, that's me, Uzumaki Naruto. I'm Jiraiya sensei's apprentice. What's up? The blonde said, staring at the new toad with a questioning look. There's no easy way to say it, nor is it useful to dance around the issue. Jiraiya boy has been killed in battle. Huh? The blonde said in disbelief. What did you just say? Not too long ago, there was a rumor that the Akatsuki leader was hidden in a megacure somewhere. Jiraiya went in to confirm this rumor. The Akatsuki leader was called Pain. Now I don't know if Jiraiya boy told you, but he trained a group of children from AIM during the Second World War. It seems that this Pain is actually one of those children. To defeat someone as powerful as Lord Jiraiya, that's quite a feat. How did this Pain pull it off? Kakashi asked. It was because Pain possesses the Rinnegan eye. The Rinnegan? No. That means, with this everyone's eyes were on Naruto. The blonde's anger boiled inside him, even Rika looked at him in concern. First he took my mother and father, now he's taken my master as well. To top it all off, he was trained by Jiraiya sensei. Tsunade's eyes widened at Naruto, mentioning that he knew who his parents were. Naruto, you know? Yeah, I know, I met my dad. Tsunade dear, we're getting off topic. The Rinnegan is extremely powerful, but to top it off, there were 6 of them with the Rinnegan eye. 6? How is that even possible? Asked the copy nin in disbelief. I don't know, perhaps there's some trick behind it. I believe Jiraiya boy figured it out in that final battle. Even after having his throat crushed, and he knew the end was near, Jiraiya boy left a message before collapsing. The toad said, whipping off his cloak. This is his message. It's a code, commented Shizune. I believe he did this to prevent Pain from catching on, but that is all I know. I'm not sure what he was trying to tell us. Spoke the Hokage. Naruto boy, he also gave me something that I need to give to you. It's the final draft of his new book. The elder toad said, and held out a book to the blonde. The man stepped forward and took the parchment in his hand. He also pulled out his own piece of paper and politely asked the toad to turn around. He quickly copied down the code left by his master, before he placed the book and the paper in his pocket. He then stepped away, back to Rika's side. He looked to his Hokage and then spoke. Did you let him go, Lady Hokage? The elder blonde closed her eyes and sighed before answering. Yes, that's right. Everyone in the room felt Naruto's chakra flex at the words. His anger became almost malleable. I see. The man said, his anger coming back under his hold. I had to go. He spoke. Now hold on Naru. Kakashi was cut off when the man disappeared via body flicker. Damn it. That kid. Enough Kakashi, let him be. Understood ma'am. Naruto? Rika said in worry under her breath. Damn it, came the loud scream of the blonde as he slammed into the ground. His most recent attempt in using the flying Raijin had thrown him head over heels as he came out. He had tried to come out running, but the pain sent him off of his feet as soon as he had teleported. What am I doing wrong, sensei? The blonde's thoughts were overtaken by memories of the large white-haired sage. A man that had been a mentor, a friend, and a father figure. Why do you have to go alone? Jiraiya sensei. The blonde stood and made his way back to his home. Sadness filled him, and he couldn't even focus on his training. He had tried to use it as something to distract him, but it really hadn't worked. He sighed loudly as he walked, and just couldn't shake the feeling of hurt that had overtaken him. Naru. Hey, Rika, how are you holding up? Not well, he's gone. Rika. He was a father figure to me. He was a man of immeasurable strength, and honestly I thought he was invincible. But now, he's dead, he's not coming back, and if Jiraiya-sensei couldn't beat this guy, who can? The self-doubt he held within him from long ago quickly clawed its way to the surface. Naruto, more than anything, Master Jiraiya believed in you. He believed in your willpower, and in your strength. Yeah, I don't know, I just miss him. I know Naru, but he'd want you to keep going, and celebrate his life, more than dwell on his death. I wanted him to watch over me. I wanted him to watch me become strong. To see me change the world of shinobi, and to see me become Hokage. I wanted him to be at my wedding one day, and I wanted him to be a grandfather to my children. Oh Naruto, I'm so sorry. I know it hurts, but you have to remember darling, he's watching over you every day now. His eyes are on you at all times, now more than ever. Thanks Rika. Would you mind maybe letting me sort this out alone for a while? Of course Naruto. Come get me if you need me. Will do. A few minutes after the woman had left, Naruto stood from his bed and sat down at his desk. In front of him, he placed Jiraiya's recently finished book, The Tale of the Prodigal Son. I'm proud you wrote another book that can affect people's lives. I'll have to get this published. He thought to himself as he examined the book. As he lifted it, a note suddenly slipped out. Confusion dawned on his face, and he quickly examined it. Naruto, I plan to take you to your parents' home for your birthday. But I write this letter in case I don't make it back from a megacure. Obviously I'm so super awesome though, so we don't have to worry about that. But anyway, I've included the address of their former home, just for you. Please go have a look around. Stay strong kiddo, see ya soon. The blonde cried at the last words to him from his sensei. It hurt to know that the man had genuinely believed he would be able to make it out of AIM alive. I think I'll bring Rika along to the house then, he said to himself. He then wiped his tears and stood. He made his way to the door and was off to find his girlfriend. Naruto, whatcha up to? Wanna get some ramen on me? Iruka said, bumping into his student in the street. Actually, sure, the man replied quietly. What's the matter Naruto? Asked this other father figure in the blonde's life. Let's talk about it at the stand. Alright, the two made their way to the ramen shop, and they chatted about trivial things until their food arrived. So, what's wrong Naruto? Well, Master Jiraiya was killed in battle. What? Naruto, are you serious? Yes, he said sadly. The two ate quietly as Iruka thought on what to say. They soon finished their meals, and Naruto began to get antsy. He moved to excuse himself, but Iruka caught his arm. Wait, he said, come with me. Alright, the blonde replied in slight confusion. Eventually the two found themselves in the park. Iruka motioned for the Junin to sit on the bench before speaking. Wait here, I'll be right back, he said with a smile. The Chunin returned quickly, a two-piece popsicle in hand. He broke it in half, and handed one to Naruto. Here, you look like you could use one, he said to the boy, no man, that he had watched grow. Lord Jiraiya loved you like his own child, Naruto. I'm sure his last thoughts were of you, and I'm sure he's watching over you right now. He certainly wouldn't be happy seeing you sad like this. So don't stay depressed forever. After all, Lord Jiraiya himself, one of the 3 legendary Sannin, acknowledged you as his promising student. I'm sure you're the man that Jiraiya hoped to see you become. And you are the embodiment of his teachings. You and only you can show the world what he taught you, and pass his teachings to the next generation. Thank you, Iruka-sensei. The blonde replied with the softest of smiles. The pair sat and talked a while, eating their popsicles in the midday heat. The two soon said their goodbyes, and the man was once again off to find Rika. So yes, this is my parents' old home. Once we step through this door, you're going to learn an S-rank secret. Are you prepared for that? Of course I am. Alright then, let's go. With that the pair stepped into the building. Naruto had undone the barrier and locking seals Minato had once placed on the wooden door. They looked around in wonder, before Rika made her way over to a shelf. Naruto, your father is, she said, picking up a photograph. Yeah, my dad was the fourth Hokage. The resemblance is uncanny. How did no one notice? I think it was more that they didn't want to notice. You see, the reason they orchestrated me was because I am the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. The nine tails? Yeah, father sealed it in me to save the village, and to protect the balance of power between the villages. He made a sacrifice not only for the village but for the world. Doing so, he placed a massive burden on my shoulders, but I look at it as more of a responsibility. He said, rubbing dust off of another photo of his mother and father. So is that why you're learning the flying Raijin? Yes, father left me that jutsu, a final gift to his son. I see, the woman said. Naruto, your mother was beautiful. He smiled in response. I know, wasn't she? Quite the amazing woman. I would have liked to meet her. She said with a soft smile. I'm sure they would have loved to meet you as well, Rika. The warm grin plastered across his face told the woman that her partner had come to terms with the death of his master. I'm going to store away many of these photos. I want to keep them with me a while, until I decide if I intend to move into this home. Smart idea, the brunette commented. After some time spent exploring, Rika took her leave, and Naruto moved into what they had discovered to be his father's study. He looked around for a while and discovered pages and pages of his father's notes. Impressed by the amount of theories and fuinjutsu ideas his father had come up with, Naruto stored it all away in his scroll, and returned home for his rest. Nagato, everyone is dead, we can't keep this up. I'm sorry, but it's over. No Conan. I will retrieve the nine tails myself, as I should have all those years ago. Unfortunately, that bastard Hokage managed to rip away my control of the Gedo statue. It took me quite a while to regain the ability to summon it. Okay, say you do capture the nine tails, then what? We will rest, recover, and I will hunt down Jinchuriki on my own. While I do this, you will recruit new members. You're going to capture all those Jinchuriki alone? You and I both know that will be extremely difficult. On top of that, the only tailed beasts we possess are the 1 and 3 tails. As they say, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. The man said, a slight anger in his tone. Weeks passed, and Naruto continued his attempts to figure out the flying Raijin. He struggled to actually perform the technique. He just couldn't understand what exactly he was doing wrong. Due to this, he now found himself talking with Rika. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so hard, I'm really struggling to figure it out. I'm sorry, Naruto. I wish I could help, but you know I'm no good with this stuff you're talking about. She replied. She was currently patching up one of Naruto's training outfits. It was torn badly on the leg. They continued to converse as Naruto watched her try to rip away a piece of fabric from the pants. He watched as she pulled at it harshly to no avail. The woman wasn't all that great at this sewing, and she was very much just winging it. He watched with curiosity as she made a small cut in the fabric, before using that cut as a starting point to tear the fabric away. Rika, he yelled, causing the woman to jump. What? Dang it, Naruto, you scared me. You're a freaking genius. Thank you. Thank you so much, you brilliant woman. He yelled excitedly. He quickly pecked her on the cheek, and smiled at her. I have to go. I think you just got me to crack the flying Raijin. He said, full of excitement. Here, take this in case I figure it out. He then quickly handed her a marked tri-pronged kunai, before he disappeared in a body flicker. The woman shook her head at her boyfriend's antics and made a simple statement under her breath. Weirdo. Naruto quickly stopped at his parents' old house. He had read in his father's notes about some kind of secret passage in the basement that led to something, but the notes were incomplete. They had been dated to the night before his birth, so he assumed his father hadn't had the chance to complete them. He wanted to go check it out quickly before he threw himself headlong into the flying Raijin training with his new idea that had been sparked by Rika. Coming before a strange and well-locked door in the basement, the man stood in confusion. The door had a few locks on it, as well as plenty of sealing formula to keep it closed. After some time of trial and error, Naruto unlocked the door and made his way inside. What is this? The blonde questioned in wonder as he stood in a seemingly unending plane of existence. A massive open and blank white and gray area sprawled around him. Dad, you crazy genius. I can't believe it. You created your own pocket dimension. The blonde stood there, taking in the marvelous amount of work it must have taken his father to develop this. Wait, how the hell am I going to get out of here? Shit, this might be a problem. He sat down and quickly unfurled his scroll, extracting the notes of his father. He quickly began sifting through them, intent on finding an answer. Studying quickly, he soon figured out three things. The first was that his father had created this place as a testing ground for extremely dangerous jutsu. The second was that this pocket dimension only slowed time by a few hours. 24 hours in the pocket dimension would be 12 hours in the real world. The third had deeply concerned the blonde. His father had not written down how to escape this place. It certainly had the man stumped and he needed to figure it out. He made multiple shadow clones, who quickly set to work on finding a way out. In the meantime, Naruto planned to perfect the flying Raijin. Before he got to work however, the boy spun around and made 3 more shadow clones. These clones quickly got to work on trying to decipher Jiraiya's message. "Has anyone seen Uzumaki Naruto?" asked the Hokage to her assembled group of nin. "No ma'am, I believe myself and Iruka were the last ones to see him. That was last week. He had been headed to his training complex, but no one has found any trace of him. I highly doubt he deserted the village. I believe he may have caused himself trouble in his training. We checked his house, and the Inuzukas tracked his scent to the basement door. However, it was locked with multiple sealing formulas and no one could even begin to comprehend them. And with Master Jiraiya gone, Rika trailed off. That brat always gets into trouble. We'll give him another week, but if he hasn't returned from wherever he's gone we will begin attempts to break into it," the Hokage said. About 2 hours after the meeting, a dreadful feeling came over some of the people who lived in the village. They had no idea what was about to happen. "Gah!" came the pained shout as the Chunin died at the hands of the Akatsuki leader. "Kato!" yelled the other Konoha Chunin. As soon as the man finished speaking he found himself lifted from the ground and pulled rapidly to the strange orange-haired man. He screamed in dying pain as a black rod ripped through his chest and pierced his heart. Tossing the body of the fallen nin to the ground, the shinobi turned his sights on the village. "It is time, Uzumaki Naruto." Civilians watched in horror as rockets and summons destroyed the village around them. Massive explosions rocked the ground beneath their feet, throwing some down to the ground. Rika stopped, and quickly helped up an elderly woman who had fallen. "Please, evacuate quickly," she said to the elder, who smiled and thanked her before quickly running off. "What's happening?" Rika asked aloud as she ran through the streets. She made her way across rooftops, trying to find the source of the destruction. She skidded to a stop as she heard the voice of the Chunin, Umino Iruka. She watched as an orange-haired man landed before her former academy teacher. "Speak now. Is Uzumaki Naruto in this village?" Iruka looked up at him defiantly, attempting to tend to the wounded ninja below him. "I don't have anything to say to the likes of you. Is that so? Then I have no need for you," said the man stoically as he swung his arm down, a metal rod intended for Iruka's chest. His arm was stopped suddenly however, when a gloved hand caught it. The Rinnegan wielder then came face to face, and eye to eye, with none other than Hitaki Kakashi. "Take that man with you, and pull back. I'll handle things here," spoke the copy nin. "Why yes sir," Iruka replied obediently. He quickly gathered his wounded comrade and made his escape. Kakashi quickly dodged a kick from the enemy, and summoned an earth wall behind him. Earth release. Earth-style wall. The wall sprouted behind the Akatsuki leader, and had him trapped, at least Kakashi thought so. He quickly brought a Chidori to life, and moved to slam it into the enemy. Moments before it could connect, he was blasted away by the almighty push. Fire-style. Dragon Flame Jutsu. A column of fire came from Rika jumped down from the rooftop and landed beside Kakashi. The man escaped the damage from the Chunin's jutsu, but seemed unprepared when Kakashi released his own. Lightning-style. Lightning Beast Running Jutsu. The large hound made of lightning barreled towards the man, and just when it looked like it would connect, it was blasted away by the orange-haired man's technique. So he can repel jutsu as well. The copy nin glanced at the Chunin beside him. "Rika, you sure you want to be here? I'll fight, no doubt. Any idea where Naruto is?" He also gave her a look that said, "Don't reveal anything." "No, I haven't seen him," she said, shaking her head. "Shit, we need to protect him," replied the masked man. "Let's handle this first then," spoke the stoic brunette. "Right." As this was said, another path of pain crashed down behind them. Its arm extended and opened up, blasting out a large number of rockets at the Konoha nin. A massive explosion enveloped the two nin, and it looked as if they had been killed. A cloud of dust appeared behind the new arrival, and Kakashi burst from it, Chidori in hand. He was extremely surprised when the man dodged with no trouble, even from his blind spot. The man regrouped with his comrade, and they were immediately greeted with another blast of fire. Fire style. Flame bombs. Called the Blue Net. The fire seemed to roast the two, only for them to come out mostly unscathed. However, the man who fired the rockets had changed. He now possessed 3 faces, 6 arms, and a massive blade extending from his back. The original attacker raised his hand, and pulled the 2 Konoha nin toward them, Kakashi bound for the misformed man's blade, and Rika bound for a black rod extending from the original sleeve. Kakashi caught himself and Rika with a chain he had anchored. Unfortunately, the pull increased, and ripped the masked nin away. The Blue Net managed to grab a better hold of the chain, and wait out the jutsu. Due to this, she was forced to watch as Kakashi was promptly impaled by the massive blade. She also bore witness to Kakashi turning into lightning and shocking the enemy. The orange-haired man suddenly glanced up, and managed to dodge away as the fists of the Akamichi impacted his partner, and the place he had stood moments ago. The last Uchiha found himself only a few miles outside the village when a feeling of dread suddenly overtook him. What the hell? He thought to himself. He had been returning from a mission outside of Fire Country, and had almost made it home. He quickly made his way to a high point, where he assumed he would get a semi-clear view of the village in the distance. The sight he was greeted with filled him with worry for his home. The Sharingan wielder leapt from his perch, and quickly made his way to the village. Seeing the massive columns of smoke rising from the village sent shivers down his spine, and anger to his heart. Chapter 25. Naruto stared at the kunai over 100 yards in front of him. He had just perfectly executed the flying Raijin for the 200th time. It was actually the first time using it perfectly himself, but his clones had previously been flashing all over the pocket dimension. He closed his eyes and focused on the feeling of the single kunai before him. His eyes suddenly shot wide open, however, when he sensed a kunai inside his parents' home. God damn it, I'm an idiot. How could I not have thought of that? Of course you would use flying Raijin to leave this place, Dad. The blonde smiled to himself, and quickly collected his kunai in the area. He then closed his eyes, and flashed to the blade in his father's home. The blonde flashed into existence back in Konohagakure, only to land on a pile of rubble. What the hell? He asked aloud. He looked around, and found himself in the ruins of his parents' previously standing home. As he pushed himself up, he uncovered a large white cloak. The Junin pulled it from the ruined closet that it sat inside of. He had held it up in front of himself, when his balance was rocked by multiple explosions and the loud sounds of battle raging through the village. His face hardened as he realized his home was under attack. He stretched out his chakra, and felt the weak signatures of Kakashi and Rika, along with everyone in the village. Knowing they were in trouble, the blonde quickly pulled the cloak on, and disappeared in a flash of yellow. Rika and Kakashi sat buried in the rubble, pain coursing through them. Before them stood the orange-haired man. Your inability to move doesn't seem faked. He spoke. Shit, I didn't make it, is Rika alive? Kakashi thought to himself. He looked around and saw the blue net pinned against a wall, a pipe sticking through her side, but she was breathing. I know you're not a shadow clone, Hitaki Kakashi. It's over, but I will not approach you, just to be safe. 2 nails ripped from a board below his feet, and flew up into his grasp. Humph, no pain. Kakashi took a deep breath, realizing this was the end, only to see a yellow flash appear in front of him. At the same time, one appeared in front of Rika as well. Both nails were knocked away, and before both ninjas stood a blonde-haired man, a cloak upon his back, with orange flames licking the bottom, and the kanji reading, Yellow Flash. Sensei, Kakashi called, shocked at the pure resemblance between Naruto and Minato. He had, for just a second, mistaken one for the other. Too slow, said the blonde. 3 kunai flew at the orange-haired man, but he immediately recognized just what kind of kunai they were, and repelled them with his jutsu. Naruto had expected this and appeared behind the man in a body flicker, and 2 kunai were thrown into the air before his foot impacted the man's back. The body of Pain stumbled slightly before he felt a hand grab him on the bicep. He quickly grabbed the offending appendage and slung the blonde across the rubble field. As he moved to engage the thrown blonde, he was forced to stop and repel a spear of lightning. Chidori's sharp spear. Came the voice of Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto, take them, I'll hold him off while you handle the rest of the problems. Here, take Lady Katsuyu, he yelled, throwing the small slug at the blonde. Thanks, don't die Uchiha, Naruto said, quickly flashing to Rika, who he picked up gently in his arms. Another clone popped off and grabbed Choji, flashing the boy to the Hokage. As if. The Uchiha replied as he watched Naruto's shadow clone grab Kakashi, and the pair of blondes flashed away to the Konoha hospital. How did you get to me so quickly? Kakashi asked his student. You still carry the kunai my father gave you. The masked man looked at the boy stunned, before realization dawned on his face. Ah, that's right, I guess I do, he said, rubbing the back of his head. Where did you get the coat? He asked. Oh, Dad seemed to have a prototype coat in his closet at the house. I found it when I got out. Long story, I'll tell y'all later. The blonde Junin replied. Oh okay, and Rika? Did you give her a kunai as well? I gave her one before I returned to my training ground. My shadow clone will explain the rest sensei, I had to go. The boy said to his teacher, before walking over to the bed he had laid his lover on. Rika, I love you. She stirred slightly before looking at the blonde. She smiled softly, but with a tired look adorning her face. Naruto, I love you too, good luck. He leaned down and kissed her cheek. He could see the pain she hid however, and his fist clenched in anger at his side. Thanks, I'll be back in a flash. Tsunade, the boy said, landing next to the Hokage. Seeing that Choji had just gotten done explaining the abilities of the main pain body, he continued with his plan. Ma'am, please, tend to the people at the hospital. I have clones collecting them and bringing them there. Please Lady Hokage, let me do the fighting, and you do the healing. More will live that way. Naruto, fine, take me there, she said after a moment's hesitation. Yes ma'am, the blonde said, grabbing her shoulder and flashing her to the hospital. I've gotta go Grandma Tsunade. Naruto said with a soft smile. Be careful, and make us proud, she said, with a soft smile of her own. No matter how smart the young man was, and how collected he could be, some of that age-old personality Iruka had told her about still managed to show through at times. As the Anbu Black Ops battled the multi-headed dog, Inochi, Shizune, and a few others, were surprised by the arrival of a massive rhino. Next thing they knew, the rhino had torn down the building, and the dog had arrived along with the Anbu. Before anyone could move though, a voice echoed through the streets. Summoning. Multiple food cart destroyer technique. Across the village, all of the summons were crushed under the massive weight of Naruto's toads. Shadow clones stood atop the heads of some, but the real Naruto stood atop Gamabunta, whose weight was holding down the massive dog. Gamahiro stood beside them, perched atop the rhino. Bunta, hero, hold them down just a bit longer. I need to gather some chakra to do both at the same time. Will do, but hurry up brat, yelled the boss toad. Shizune called out in wonder. Naruto. Is that you? Don't worry Shizune, I'll wrap this up in no time. The blonde called back, after which all the toads in the village came crashing to the ground, the enemy's summons gone from beneath them, along with Naruto and his clones. Meanwhile Sasuke was still battling it out with the main body of pain. Damn it, now that Naruto has that jutsu down, he's definitely stronger than me. I'll have to train more. He might be the only one who can get around this guy's stupid jutsu. The young Uchiha stared down the orange-haired man. Chidori Senbon, he called as thousands of lightning needles shot from his hand at the man. The Preta path quickly appeared, absorbing the ninjutsu Senbon. Sasuke grew annoyed. He didn't want to use it yet, considering it risked his sight. Fine, I don't have a choice. He closed his eyes and his left eye snapped open. Amaterasu, he called, as blood began to trickle from the eye socket. Burn to ash, almighty push. With that the flames of Amaterasu were forced away, and he then moved his hands in a different gesture. Universal pull. Sasuke was pulled towards the man, but smirked as Naruto flashed into existence behind pain. Sorry, but you're needed elsewhere buddy, Naruto said, grabbing a hold of the man's arm where he had left his flying Raijin marker. He had teleported them outside the village, To a crater left by the tailed beast bomb his father had teleported away from the village on the night of his birth. The man immediately reached up and ripped the sleeve of his cloak off, knowing the flying Raijin marker had been placed there. He noticed that the young adult had also teleported his summons to this crater as well. You know, this crater we now stand in, it's only here because of you. You caused the death of my mother and father. I got to meet my dad. He's more skilled with sealing than I am, so he worked it into the seal that I would be able to meet him one day. Except, when you attacked the village on my birthday, you were supposed to have red hair. The blonde stared down the diva path, the slightest hint of anger in his eyes. Where's the real you, Nagato? The puppet corpse narrowed its eyes at the Jinchuriki. How did you know? Well, Dad said a man with a Rinnegan and red hair attacked the village, and well, only Jiraiya-sensei's 1 in a million student fit the description. Not to mention, the message he sent back contained valuable intel. I know the real you is not among those here. I see, so you know. But you do not know of my pain. You have not felt my pain, so you cannot understand me. Listen, buddy, I've felt pain. I watched my first love die before me. I grew up alone because you killed my parents. And I felt even more pain when you killed Jiraiya-sensei. You may have killed a couple hundred or so nin in the village, but that stops now. I'm here and you won't touch my village again. Naruto quickly weaved through hand signs as he saw the man's summons begin to move. You're all talk, boy. Summoning. Multi-food cart destroyer technique. He called out as multiple shadow clones burst from the trees, dropping massive toads atop the summons. Among those toads were Gamabunta, Gamaken, and Gamahiro. 2 shadow clones burst to life behind Naruto. They pulled the scroll from his back and flickered to the sides of the crater. They unraveled the scroll and weaved through hand signs. In a puff of smoke, 40 tri-pronged kunai sat before them. The 2 clones then took the opportunity to litter the crater with them, before they themselves rolled the scroll back up and tossed it at the original. I hope your eyes can keep up. He reached into his kunai holster and withdrew another marked kunai. He moved himself into a fighting stance, and as he did 5 more orange-haired paths of pain landed before him. You see, I hope you weren't planning on destroying my village just because I wasn't here. That would be pretty rude. And on top of that, it looked to me like you intended to kill Rika, and that just doesn't sit right with me. The 19-year-old said, appearing before the man in a flash, and kicking him high into the air, sending a barrage of kunai along with him. He slashed the diva path 6 times as they made their ascent, before flashing behind him at the highest point and bringing his kunai down into the man's back. As pain landed, Naruto did as well, flying flash, heaven stage. He smirked at the enemy as his feet touched the ground. The path stood, before extending his hands out before him. Almighty pus. He was cut off as the blonde slammed into him, throwing him back across the ground. I won't let you, he yelled, moving to attack once more. He was then intercepted by the human path, who threw him away toward the Asura path, whose massive blade that had once killed Kakashi's shadow clone, moved to end his life. He was forced to flash away from the group, as all 6 paths converged with their chakra rods in a strike aimed directly where he had been. I see you've already able to at least be on par with your father's use of that blasted jutsu. The diva path commented, you had a fox to distract him last time. Now you don't have that. This time you're going to lose, pain. As if, the man said, extending his arms. Almighty push. He yelled, and every Raijin kunai was blown away to the edges of the crater. From the intelligence I've been given, he should had about 5 seconds in between each use of that jutsu. Their eyes are all linked, but you can't dodge if you can't even keep up. Thought the blonde, who threw a handful of kunai at the Naraka path. Gotta take him out first so he can't bring back his buddies. He appeared before the corpse puppet, slamming his fist into it, while simultaneously marking it with his Raijin seal. He tossed it away and appeared behind it, a larger than normal Rasengan charged. The jutsu smashed into the body's back, destroying it almost entirely. Universal pull, yelled the main body, and the blonde was sent hurtling towards the remaining paths. Just as he thought he may have the blonde though, the younger man disappeared in a flash, landing on the edge of the clearing. I've got something important to protect, so I can't lose here, yelled the blonde, launching 2 kunai at the animal path. The kunai landed just in front of her, and Naruto appeared, slashing her across the face with a kunai, before kicking her into the air. A kunai chased her and impacted her chest before Naruto flashed into existence behind her. The blonde quickly sent her back to the ground with a Rasengan. He appeared once more above her body as she bounced off the ground and slammed into her with another Rasengan, Flying Ragen, combo level. He called in his head as he destroyed yet another of the paths of pain. The summons now gone, Naruto sent the toads home as well. Having sensed the presence of a new player, Naruto began to weave through hand seals. Wind style. Open destruction. A massive blast of wind left his mouth as it barreled toward the main body. Fire style. Searing migraine. Came the shout of the newcomer. As the jutsu joined together, a simultaneous shout came from both parties. Ninja art. Massive firestorm. Sasuke landed next to his friend as they watched the jutsu barrel towards the enemy. Unfortunately, the Preta path jumped before the main body and instantly absorbed the jutsu. Fuck, I forgot about him. Of course you did, you dolt. You never change. Shut up, Sasuke. Now this is going to feel weird for you, but I have a plan. How would you like to teleport today? Asked the last Namikaze. If I was going to trust anyone to teleport me, it might as well be you. Not to mention you've done it before during our fight with Itachi. Quipped the Uchiha. Yeah, but that was a little different. The new speed demon quickly grabbed his friend on the shoulder, and as he did so, his clones once again threw a volley of kunai around the crater. Almighty push! Yelled the main body, and all the kunai were repelled, only to burst into smoke. Another volley of actual kunai were launched this time, and the crater was covered. Suddenly the Uchiha had appeared behind the Asura path, and stabbed his Chikuto into it. Chidori blade, he called, and his Chidori took possession of the entire sword, slicing the entire Asura path in half. Naruto flashed beside him, and teleported his black-haired comrade to the Preta path, who Sasuke immediately engaged with his sword. Naruto appeared before the human path, bringing a Rasengan to bear at the corpse only for himself and Sasuke both to be sent flying. Almighty push! The two Konoha shinobi landed beside each other. Fuck, we almost had them. Chill, Sasuke. We'll get them. Right, you two should just give up now. And your deaths shall lead to peace. The Diva path spoke. Surprisingly, it was Sasuke who was riled up by this. What the fuck can you say about peace? You just came and tried to destroy our entire village. You almost killed my teammates. And the whole point of you being here now is to kill my best friend. Nothing about what you are doing here is peaceful. My brother gave up everything to protect our home. I won't let you step on his sacrifice. We are outside the village now, so I'm not going to hold back, Naruto. The Uchiha stared at his friend. No, you can't use the Susanoo. You can't risk your eyesight. Save it for if I get knocked out of this fight. You promised not to use it until you had Itachi's eyes implanted. We can use your other jutsu though. Let's go, said the blonde. Sasuke was teleported to the side of the crater, and immediately he nodded to Naruto. Combo 6. Said the Uchiha. Got it. Fire style. Searing migraine. Wind style. Open destruction. As the two massive elemental jutsu combined as they climbed into the sky, and the two nin shouted in unison. Ninja art. Massive firestorm. A massive deadly-looking storm cloud began to form overhead, and the main body of pain was almost confused as to what was going on. Sasuke, Naruto said quickly. Don't even try it until I've taken care of that other one. I know, the Uchiha said, and Naruto reached out, placing a tri-pronged kunai in the one-time Avenger's hand. The blonde disappeared to the opposite side of the crater, slinging a handful of Ragen kunai at the three paths. This is getting old, said the main body. Almighty push, he yelled, sending the kunai away, only to see a second group of kunai come falling down from the sky. They surrounded the three paths, and a flash burst into existence beside the Preta path, grabbing it on the shoulder before disappearing. A small explosion was heard in the direction of one of the training grounds, before the blonde appeared beside the Diva path. He hid kunai in the firestorm they created earlier. Nagato thought to himself from his faraway hiding place. The blonde kicked the body away and yelled to his comrade. Sasuke. Now, the human path had a perplexed look upon its face, before it turned in shock at the Diva appearing next to it, having been teleported by Naruto. This jutsu is called Kirin. Now, with the thunderclap, be gone. As the Uchiha moved his hand down, lightning from the heavens followed. It completely ruined the human path, and left the diva path with only tatters of a cloak left, and exhaustion evident in his expression. You Konoha nin just don't know when to quit. Fine, then I'll use that jutsu. Planetary devastation. A black sphere formed in his hands, that he then threw into the sky. The ground and everything in the general vicinity began to rip apart and fly toward the sphere. The Uchiha was ripped from his perch, and a few trees were torn away as well. Sasuke. He flashed to his best friend, quickly teleporting the man back to the village. I'll be back, this is my fight now. Seconds later found Naruto staring down the final body. I'll just continue to pump chakra into the jutsu until you are sucked up into it 9 tai. The man cut off suddenly. What the blonde didn't know was that back at his control tower, Nagato had began a fit of coughs, having pushed himself much farther than he had anticipated. Naruto took immediate advantage of the situation. He quickly threw a kunai at the man. The kunai stabbed into his chest and Naruto appeared above him, Rasengan charged. He brought the jutsu down upon the man, crushing him to the ground. Flying Raijin. Second step. The man's body lay broken and battered, and yet he began to stand. Naruto wasn't about to let him recover though. He flung 2 kunai at the man, and when both impacted he teleported behind him. He landed 3 quick kicks to the man's chest, before launching into a spin kick that sent him backwards. To finish him off, Naruto jumped into the air, and connected a heavy heel drop to the man's head. This ends here. The man once again stood, and Naruto decided it was time he stopped getting up. He threw 2 kunai parallel to each other, and charged a Rasengan in each hand. Time-space, Rasengan barrage. He thought, as he flashed between the kunai, appearing before his target and demolishing his body with the combined force of his 2 oversized Rasengans. Naruto knew he had done it, when the body failed to stand anymore. He spawned 2 clones, who began pulling the rods out of the original blonde, crouched to the ground, and stretched his chakra over a large area, searching for anyone unfamiliar. So that's where you are, he thought, sensing the chakra of the man named Nagato. Not a bad hiding place, out in the forests of Konohagakure. But unfortunately for Nagato, Minato had long ago littered the forests with kunai and markers. Naruto flashed to one of these markers and he was now only about a mile away from the location of the enemy. He was beginning to get tired. Shit. Dad must have been a chakra beast, to just teleport all over like this. The flying Raijin is not for those with small chakra reserves. That's why I'm perfect for it. He quickly body flickered to the fake tree Konan had set up. He cut through the wall with his kunai, and stepped through cautiously. So this is where you were, Nagato. The blonde sighed, as much as I don't want to do this, Jiraiya-sensei trusted in me to try to find peace whenever possible. So that said, I'll give you this one chance to surrender. Give up, stop this senseless killing. I don't want to have to kill my sibling students. You both trained under Jiraiya. I know about your friend, Yahiko. And seeing as how he isn't here, I'd assume he died. I'd also put money on the fact that you probably only became the way you are now, because of his death. So tell me, would he be proud of the actions you have taken since his death? The blonde asked. At those words, Nagato and Konan visibly froze. The thoughts plagued the redhead's mind, the brunette stunned by the words as well. You talked about finding true peace. Nothing about how you go around just killing people is peaceful. Didn't anything Jiraiya-sensei said stick in that stupid head of yours? Nagato yelled back at the blonde. Jiraiya was a fool. His words are nothing but a dream of an idealistic old man. You're right. Jiraiya-sensei was a fool. The day will never come when everyone can understand each other. But when I become Hokage, I will do everything in my power to make the world become more peaceful. If there's a chance of the other villages working with me to come together and have a peaceful world, then I'll make it happen. But if Konohagakure is attacked, I will stop at nothing to protect it, and end any war as quickly as possible. The blonde spoke, his voice that of pure resolve. The red-haired man glared at the 19-year-old. You're a fool. You could not find the answer, so there is nothing more you can do. So do the just thing and simply sacrifice yourself to me, and to the peace that I shall soon construct. A chakra rod shot out of Nagato's control throne, aimed at Naruto's chest. I see. So be it, the blonde said. 2 kunai landed beside Konan, and 3 flew at Nagato himself, courtesy of 2 shadow clones Naruto had hidden higher up in the tree before he entered. He flashed in front of Konan, destroying the blue net with a Rasengan in the back, inflicting wounds from which one could not recover. He then flashed to Nagato just after the 3 kunai impacted the man's chest. He appeared just above him, and slammed a kunai into the redhead's throat. Watching the life drain from his eyes, Naruto sighed. I really didn't want this at all. I suppose all I can do is move forward. You threatened my home, I hate you for it, but I forgive you. But you just wouldn't stop. He sighed once more and left the tree as it began to crumple into sheets of paper. He traveled a while before finding a suitable place, and set up a shrine to his sensei. Jiraiya sensei. I hope at the very least you will be proud of me for protecting Konoha. I know this isn't exactly what you wanted, but even you may have been too naive. Goodbye sensei. Rest well. With that the boy began heading back to the village. Lady Hokage. A nurse yelled as the Hokage finally fell from exhaustion. The nurse and a few nin laid her on a bed, and she looked at them through tired eyes. Have Sakura and Shizune take over. Bring me Kakashi, he should be up by now. Yes ma'am. Minutes passed and Kakashi walked into the room. You wanted to see me, Lady Tsunade? Kakashi, go find my brat. The masked Junin eyes smiled at her before responding with, yes ma'am. Please rest now. Kakashi, I'll be out for probably about 2 to 4 weeks. She said, her body beginning to succumb to exhaustion. Having spent all her chakra on preventing as many casualties as possible, she had done her utmost to protect the village. You are temporarily appointed as Hokage in my stead. Yes ma'am, I'll hold down the fort. He said, and after acknowledging his response, the Hokage fell asleep. I'm coming, Naruto. Thought the Junin as he left to find his student. Damn if I ain't tired. Flying Raijin really takes a lot out of you, doesn't it, Dad? The blonde thought to himself, looking to the sky as he stumbled through the woods. Jiraiya sensei, Mom, Dad. Would you be proud of me? Choosing to take the lives of those who threatened the village. I'm sure you would, Mom and Dad. But what would you think, Master? You entrusted your dream of peace to me. Old man Hokage. Dad, no matter how I feel, I will always take the well-being and protection of everyone in Konoha on my own shoulders. The Junin's steps faltered and he fell forward. Naruto, you did well. You made your mother and father proud. And all of your sensei as well, including Master Jiraiya. Came the voice of the copy nin as he caught the blonde man on his back. Kakashi, how's Rika? She's fine kiddo, rest now. Alright, with this Kakashi made the trip back to the village. He's gotten much heavier, they really do grow up fast. Kakashi, came the loud shout of the last Uchiha as he landed beside his sensei. They were only about a half-mile outside of Konohagakure, and the Uchiha had gotten impatient in waiting for the return of his comrade. Is he alright? Yeah, just tired and exhausted. Good. It can't hurt to show a little more emotion, Sasuke. I've already lost enough of my filter due to my exposure to the idiot. It's important I compose myself as much as possible these days. Sure, you, Sasuke? Mumbled the blonde as he began to stir. The conversation between the other 2 men having brought him back from his slumber. You alright, idiot? Yeah, all alive, he replied, having Kakashi slowly set him on his own 2 feet. Shortly after, the 3 broke the tree line, coming face to face with the village, along with hundreds of grateful villagers. Kakashi and Sasuke recognized exactly what this moment would mean for the blonde Jinchuriki, and quickly faded back behind him. Shouts and cheers rang out at the sight of the man who so closely resembled the 4th Hokage. Naruto slowly made his way forward, and the crowd parted, letting children in to pester him. As he patted heads of children and spoke kind words to the young ones, the crowd parted before him once again. Konohamaru and his group popped out of the crowd, dragging their fellow children from the blonde, and leaving him standing alone. Standing before the man was a blue-haired woman, someone he fully intended to give all of his love to. Naruto, you came back to me. I always will, Rika, it's the promise of a lifetime. No force, in heaven or earth, can keep me apart from you. The blonde replied, walking toward her. She smiled brightly, before turning her face away and blushing brightly. To hide her face, she leapt forward into his arms. But when she finally looked up, their eyes met, and their lips locked together for everyone in the village to see. I love you. And I love you. Chapter 26. A few weeks had passed since the massive attack on the village. An attack that Naruto had almost single-handedly stopped. He and Sasuke were now widely regarded by the village as heroes. Konohagakure was now under reconstruction, the village having taken massive amounts of damage during the battle. Had it not been for the last Namikaze's intervention, it would have likely been leveled. The village had lost over 2,000 shinobi. The losses composed of 580 Junin, 150 Anbu Black Ops members, and 1,314 Chunin. The village had luckily lost very few genin. Thanks to the quick actions of many brave shinobi, they had managed to evacuate most of the genin from the battleground. The newest development in the shinobi world, however, was not sitting right with the ninja of Konohagakure. Multiple foreign spies had witnessed the battle between the Akatsuki and Konohagakure, and they had seen the huge blow that had been struck against Konoha's military might. They had also bore witness to the rise of the second Yellow Flash. Word had spread quickly across the shinobi world. The news that another Konohagakure shinobi had learned the famed jutsu of the Fourth Hokage was troubling to Kumo and Iwa. But the weakening blow dealt to Konoha by Pain was something the other nations could afford not to take advantage of. The borders of Konohagakure's minor allies had been tested time and again by the other nations since the Pain assault. Tensions between the three villages had risen to the point that Tsunagakure had publicly come forward and announced they were set-in-stone allies of Konohagakure, and would support them in any sort of conflict. Kumo and Iwa had quickly taken this as a threat, however, and had let their shinobi even farther off of the leash they had kept them on. With the leash loosened, border lines blurred, and conflict quickly burned out of control. It seemed the shinobi world now sat on the possibility of another world war. "We need a new Hokage," said one of the elders to the daimyo. "No, Hitaki was appointed by Tsunade to lead in her stead." "There's no need for this," Shikaku countered. "We need someone strong enough to show the world that our village is far from weak. We may go to war now. We cannot afford this," shouted the elder. "At the very least we should swear in Kakashi as the new Hokage." "And when Tsunade wakes, what then?" countered the Nara. Before the elder could respond, the door to the meeting room was thrown open, shocking the daimyo. "Sorry it took me so long, Dad," spoke Nara Shikamaru. "It's fine, I trust you brought him?" "Yeah." When the younger Nara replied, a tall man stepped into the room. He was immediately recognized by everyone there, as they had all seen his skill in battle. "Commander Nara, sir." "Lord Daimyo, sir." The man greeted with a bow. "Thank you for coming," the eldest Nara replied before turning to the feudal lord. "Lord Daimyo, I trust you know who this is?" "Oh, yes I do. Quite the marvelous young man," the leader of Fire Country replied in a sing-song voice. "You've done incredible things. You even look so much like the other one, it's a wonder you're not a clone." "He looks like that for a reason, my lord. He is the son of the Fourth Hokage, and the student of not only Hitaki Kakashi, but also a student of Jiraiya of the Sannin." The Nara spoke. "Oh, is that so? Yes, he would do nicely. I believe that if you insist upon having a new Hokage, he should be it." "You broke an S-rank secret just now, Nara. You should be executed," shouted the female elder. "Ma'am, I knew of my father at the age of 15, long before now." "Your lordship, will you lend me your ear for a moment?" Naruto asked. "Oh yes, my boy, you may have them both. I am listening," the royalty responded. "All my life I have dreamt of the position of Hokage. It is my ultimate goal, and I intend to take the position." "Perfect. Then it's settled." Naruto quickly cut the feudal lord off. "However, now is not the time. I'm nowhere near experienced enough, and Tsunade will soon enough be capable again. In due time, I shall one day take the hat, but for now, I am one of Konohagakure's greatest battlefield assets. To remove that advantage is ridiculous. Our best show of force we can give right now is to announce my real heritage to the village and the world. And if the village must go to war again, I will end it for us." The elders and the feudal lord stared at the blonde in astonishment. After a minute of silence, the male elder spoke. "Are you so arrogant as to think you can win a war on your own?" "Of course not, but I know I will be the deciding factor, as my father was before me. I won't lose. I've got something important to protect, and my will of fire burns hot. I will protect those I love, the village, and my country. Kakashi will do fine as a temporary placeholder for Lady Tsunade. I belong on the battlefield for now. I will take the high-rank missions that previously would have been taken on by those killed by Pain." Between Commander Nara, his son, and myself, we'll hold down the military side of Konohagakure. You, the elders and your lordship, must attend to the political and diplomatic side of things alongside Kakashi. I ask you, Lord Daimyo, I know you were a friend to my father, so please leave this to me, and put your faith in Tsunade's recovery. The old leader thought aloud. Lord Daimyo, you can't seriously be considered. Enough elders. The man has spoken, and we will appease him. Let us put our faith in him, as we did once with his father. Yes, my lord, the two elders replied. Thank you, Lord Ichigawa. You're welcome, my boy. Now please return to your duties, and do contact me sometime. I'd love to know more about his son. Of course, Naruto replied while he and Shikamaru bowed. Well, let us mark this meeting as complete. Tsunade will keep her place as Hokage, and Kakashi will hold the position temporarily in her stead. God, I'm tired, Naruto said, stepping into his new home. His parents' home had been destroyed in the attack, but the builders who had come from neighboring villages had found the original floor plans for it, and reconstructed it to the best of their ability. Specifically, it was Inari and Tazuna who had rebuilt his home. He couldn't have thanked them enough. He was happy he had sealed away the important pictures and notes he had found in the home originally. It had saved him from losing many of the important items the home had held. He was disappointed to see the ceiling formula and the door itself to his father's pocket dimension had also been destroyed. He may never be able to reverse engineer the formula now. He figured, however, that this was an acceptable loss. Rika now lived with him, and he had turned 20 in the last week. He hadn't gone on many missions since the battle, but demand was building, and with tensions with Kumo and Iwa rising, he knew he'd be back in action soon. He had begun cooking a meal. He planned for Rika to be able to eat when she arrived home, as she had been working long hours helping out at the hospital. Unfortunately, his cooking was cut short when an Anbu arrived. It was fairly early in the morning, and the meeting hadn't taken all that long. Naruto, Kakashi has requested your presence. It's important. Alright, let me change and I'll be there. With this, the Anbu disappeared, leaving Naruto alone in his home. Damn, I wonder what's going on. He thought to himself. The blonde jotted down a quick note telling Rika what he was doing, and flashed to the tower. Ready, Naruto? Asked the acting Hokage. No time like the present, replied the blonde man. That's the spirit. The masked man replied with an eye smile. Now let's go. With that, the two walked up the steps, and atop the tower. Below them was the gathered mass of Konohagakure and their shinobi, along with many merchants and travelers. People of Konohagakure, it is time for an announcement long overdue. 20 years ago, Konohagakure was attacked by the nine-tailed fox. Our very own Fourth Hokage gave his life to save the village. Now, 20 years later, Konohagakure has yet again been attacked by an unimaginable foe. This time, we were saved by a different blonde-haired man. This is Uzumaki Naruto, he said as Naruto stepped forward. The man responsible for defeating Pain and the Akatsuki. I'm sure you all know him. Now, today I am releasing a S-rank secret hidden from all of Konohagakure. This is none other than Namikaze Minato's own son. I present to you, Namikaze Naruto. Naruto smiled lightly down at the massive crowd. He was happy, because he knew that the villagers and shinobi had accepted him a while ago, and on their own. He knew that his heritage wouldn't be the deciding reason behind the village accepting him, it would be because of his own actions. The large crowd stood in shocked silence for a few seconds, before some people began to laugh, whistle, and cheer. It spread through the crowd like fire, and soon, Naruto smiled brightly at his large family. He couldn't help but hear the words of the third Hokage in his mind. Long ago when he was young he had said something that would stick with the blonde throughout his life. Flashback. The elderly Hokage sat with a small blonde boy, both silently eating ramen late at night. Outside the ramen shop the rain poured, and light thunder could be heard in the distance. Hey old man, why do you take care of me like this? Why do you watch over the village like you do? Why? Because to me, you are family Naruto. Tsuchi is my family. Ayame, and every single person in the village is my family. As Hokage, I will watch over and protect them. Naruto stared back at the old cage in awe. End flashback. As he smiled, he felt a set of arms wrap around him. His grin grew, having sensed his blue-haired lover long ago. Hey there Rika. Kakashi then broke through the cheering with his loudest voice. Everyone, thank you for coming, that will be all today. 2 weeks had passed, and Naruto could now be found in his home. Himself and Rika lay on the couch, as Naruto had just an hour before met with the Hokage. The daimyo requested you? She asked. Yeah, some big group of mercenaries made up of missing nin is terrorizing one of the larger villages on the edge of Fire Country. Thing is, the daimyo's nephew and his wife live there. But making matters worse is that they've kidnapped the wife, and are trying to ransom her off. They know that the daimyo would bring down Konoha's top shinobi for this though? There's no way they can think that they can hold off people like you, Kakashi, or Guy, right? That's what Kakashi, the daimyo, and myself think. It must be some sort of trap or lure. But the question is, for what or who? With a sigh, he continued, this might be a pretty long mission. Why do you have to go alone? We can't afford to move a force of shinobi to the border. It could make you would think we're preparing for war. Naruto, this sounds dangerous. She said, propping herself up off his chest. Everything we do is dangerous, darling. He replied, grinning back down at her. I defeated pain, so I'm confident in my abilities, but I know I can't afford to get overconfident. But you are the one that keeps me grounded. I know that no matter what, I have to come back to you, and that's a promise. I don't go back on my word. Naruto, if a man hasn't discovered something that he will die for, he isn't fit to live. He continued, moving his face closer to hers. I have something to return to, so I can't lose. I love you, Rika, and I'll be damned if anyone will stop me from coming back to you every time. His nose was now lightly touching hers, and he could feel her breath on his lips. Are you stupid? She asked with a smile. I love you too. And with that she pressed her lips against his. The two quickly found themselves in a passionate embrace, and Naruto was quickly glad that he no longer lived in an apartment, as they could be rather loud. A week later, the Junin found himself in Imatsu village. It was a rather large settlement in the Land of Fire. It was one of the few to come anywhere close to Konohagakure in size. The seemingly only downside to the location was its proximity to the border. It was the first settlement that one would come across after crossing through Kusagakure. It was along the actual road that had contained the Kanabi Bridge in Kusa. A bridge his father had participated in destroying in the Third World War. So you are Namikaze Naruto? That's me. Thank you for coming. Uncle has had many great things to say about your father, and he holds you in high regard already. So, how long ago was your wife taken? And do you have any idea how large this group is? 2 weeks ago, they took my dear wife. I don't know what I'll do without her. I contacted Uncle because when they sent me the ransom, it was extremely high, I myself couldn't afford it. Uncle then replied telling me he would send you. My samurai guard that was killed when they took her. His last words was that a team of 4 shinobi were responsible. He barely got a good look. I see, how do you know it's a group? A few fishermen had reported seeing a camp a couple of miles out by the river. Something feels off, thought the blonde. Alright, I'm going to go try to investigate. I'll be back by night. Right, good luck Mr. Namikaze. 5 Junin. 15 Chunin. 10 Genin. Most are missing nin from Iwa and Kumo. Just a few from Konoha and Suna. Naruto sat perched atop a tall tree overlooking the tiny clearing that the camp was set up in. I don't recognize any of them. Wait, that guy is Hashimaru. One of the guys that attacked me alongside Han when I was on my trip with Sensei. Strange. Maybe he was in tons of trouble for trying to capture me and almost causing a war? Still, that doesn't sound right either. Oh well, I need to get back. With that the blonde quickly flashed away, appearing in the room he had been given to stay in. The last Namikaze would spend the next week scouting the enemy encampment, and gathering intel on each shinobi. Alright, I have a plan, Naoda. Naruto said. He sat across the table from the daimyo's nephew. You do? I did some scouting. The daimyo gave you the money for the ransom even though I was coming, correct? Yes sir, he did. Arrange for a trade-off. Money for the woman. Tell them they can pick the spot. What, we're going to pay them? No, I'll mark the case with my jutsu formula. I'll make sure we don't lose the money nor your wife. Trust in me. Why yes Mr. Namikaze. Thank you. A cool breeze blew over the stream in the middle of the clearing. On one side stood over 30 shinobi, all of them were missing nin. Opposite of them stood Naoda and Naruto. The daimyo's nephew held a large case in his hands, filled with the money the enemy so desired. It had taken a whole 3 days for them to set up a meeting place to complete the exchange. Alright, hand over the lady, and I'll give you the case. Naruto said with a commanding tone. Hey, listen here, we've got the leverage right now, tree hugger. Fine, I'll give you the case first, but I'm warning you, don't test me. Yeah, give it here. A clone burst to life beside the blonde, and he passed the case to it. The clone took careful steps toward the enemy, the case outstretched in front of him. He then stood before the man holding the woman, and took hold of her with one hand, while passing the case off in the other. A light sound was made as the man beside them drew a kunai, and all hell broke loose. The Iwa nin swung the kunai at the clone, who ripped the woman away from the man holding onto her. He flashed away with her in hand, and appeared where his original had just stood. As some of the nin stared in awe at his speed, the original Naruto appeared with both feet on the case, and a firm grip on the handle. The nin were stunned as the man who had held the case fell dead, and Naruto appeared where he had been moments before. He quickly passed off the case, and formed 3 more shadow clones to escort the couple and the money back to their village. As the group made its retreat, Naruto turned his focus to the missing nin. Tell you what, if you all surrender right now, no one else has to die. In truth, Naruto had expected either a full surrender or an extremely violent response. He did get a violent response, but not in any form that he had expected. In a cruel and brutal flash of blades, all of the missing nin from Iwa turned on their allies. As the nin fell dead, Naruto's eyes widened as he felt over a platoon of chakra signatures enter his sensory range. The man took his fighting stance and reached into his kunai pouch. His hand stopped as it gripped a kunai, his focus being ripped away to the 2 massive chakra signatures he felt enter the area. Shit, he mumbled under his breath, this isn't good. The missing nin from Iwa all stood staring him down with grins on their faces. The blonde now deduced that the missing nin status was a cover. Soon, the platoon of backup nin sent from Iwa arrived, and Naruto was struggling to come up with a strategy. The odds were overwhelming. A platoon he could handle, but back that up with 2 Jinchuriki, he wasn't so sure. To top it off, he couldn't run. They would level the village if he did. How did you get through Kusa? He asked with narrowed eyes. It's simple really, said Roshi as he appeared on a tree branch. We didn't, said Han as he sped into place behind Naruto. The massive tank of a man launched a brutal kick at the Konoha Junin. The blonde dodged the blow, and slammed his palm into the Jinchuriki's leg armor. The massive man spun backwards and quickly landed on his feet. His eyes narrowed as he faced down the blonde. We went around. That means you either went through Omega-cure, or through Tokigakure. The blonde once again reached for his kunai pouch only to be quickly blitzed by Roshi. Lava hit where he had stood, and he was forced to dodge when the man brought a lava-covered fist mere inches from his face. The Jinchuriki of the 4 tails brought his leg around for a brutal impact, only to hit nothing but air. Naruto appeared beside Han and made to ram a newly palmed kunai into his neck. Just before he made contact, Han's body erupted with steam, protecting him by burning anything that had touched. Naruto leapt back, and palmed a second kunai in his offhand. Fuck, he never showed that before. The steam is working almost like Gaara's sand. The last namikaze flashed behind the massive Jinchuriki to the mark he had placed on his leg, and landed a brutal spin kick to the man's neck. It cost him, however, by burning his foot and ankle badly. He landed on his left foot, favoring his now wounded extremity. He was forced to move when Roshi launched multiple globs of lava at his position. Leaping back, he landed on his right foot, sending shocks of pain through his body. He threw both kunai he held behind him, knowing he needed an escape option. However, he was forced to use it immediately when Han Bull rushed him from the side. The blonde sped through hand seals, before flashing further back to his other kunai. As he landed, he slammed his hand into the ground and completed his technique. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Turtle Shell Dome. A fairly large dome of chakra rose and surrounded him, giving him a defensive option that would allow him to gather himself. The enemy Jinchuriki stopped short of the dome, knowing full well that any Uzumaki Fuinjutsu could prove deadly to the opponent. They had been trying to keep Naruto from even drawing a kunai, but that was no longer an option. The blonde took the time the jutsu had bought him as an opportunity to litter the area within the dome with kunai. He looked up as he felt the dome shake, and was met with the sight of Roshi bombarding the dome with lava. He knew if he didn't act quickly the enemy could easily burn his way through the dome. He sensed his other kunai, and realized that it had been covered and melted away by lava. Damn, they're paying attention. Oi, are you trying to start a war? He yelled at the enemy. You're a fool boy, the war has already begun. What? This whole situation was created to keep you away from the front line. Naruto growled. If what this man was saying was the truth, then Konohagakure was now in all-out war. Shit. The blonde could see his barrier being stressed by the heat of the lava that now fully encased it. He knew that in the enemy's eyes he was trapped, but they must have either forgot or not noticed that he could place a marker without a kunai. He drew two of his blades and focused in on the mark he'd left on Han's leg before flashing behind him. Showing his ability to be completely ambidextrous, he slammed a kunai into the back of the hulking Jinchuriki's thigh, while also throwing a kunai with pinpoint accuracy between the eyes of one of the Iwa shinobi on the sidelines. He immediately flashed to the thrown weapon, and pawned a kunai in one hand, while drawing 4 in the other. He struck out with his foot first, impacting the head of one of the shinobi with deadly force. Ignoring the pain that shot up his leg, he hurled the 4 other blades into the crowd. Appearing amongst them, he cut down the 2 nearest combatants before launching a knife into the air. He flashed to it, and in seconds formed a large Rasengan. He came down with force and slammed it into the ground around the crowd. As it burrowed, he tossed another kunai out into the forest before intentionally letting the Rasengan destabilize and implode. He flashed away, and watched the destruction and death he caused with a single move. Knowing he was capable of such things weighed on him in the back of his mind, but he didn't let it shake his focus. I can't flash back to the briefcase. I can't let a battle between Jinchuriki take place in a populated area. I might have to draw them away. This fucking leg is slowing me down. The blonde acted quickly and launched 6 kunai at Roshi. The enemy Jinchuriki smiled and simply melted them to nothing by spewing globs of lava to intercept each blade. So that's how it's gonna be. The Junin thought, thanks for this Sasuke. He mumbled with a smirk. He launched another set at the man and watched as he shot the lava to intercept them. Just as the lava was about to impact the blades, Naruto yanked hard on the ninja wire he had connected to 2 of them. The 2 blades veered from their original trajectory and ran into 2 of the others. The nudge sent them off course and they rocketed to each side of Roshi. As soon as the blades had ricocheted off one another, Naruto had formed 2 clones. Said doppelgangers flashed to the kunai and launched a hail of them at the lava-wielding ninja. Simultaneously they threw a set behind him. The original Naruto appeared at the kunai behind Roshi, and took a second to throw a handful of tri-prong at the now-recovered Han. As soon as they left his hand, he leapt into the air. The 2 clones flashed close to Roshi, a Rasengan roaring to life in each one's hand. In a defensive move, the old man blasted superheated chakra from his body, courtesy of the 4 tails. Before the heat could disperse the clones, they both flashed away, appearing with their momentum carrying them forward and Rasengans bared. Han's eyes widened as he was blasted with a Rasengan on both sides of his body. The bulky Jinchuriki managed to live however, by using his steam once again, and destroying the clones before they could do fatal damage. At Han's shout of pain, Roshi's attention was pulled away for a split second. It cost him dearly when Naruto landed kunai first into his shoulder. Before he could counter, the blonde formed a large Rasengan, and proceeded to blast the old red-haired man's arm clean off. In defense of its host, the 4-tailed monkey took over the now unconscious man's body, and his chakra quickly began to emerge. At this, Naruto leapt back off of Roshi, and was impacted in the side by the heavy boot of the severely wounded Han. As Naruto rolled to a stop from the blow, he saw the bulky man land next to the newly made amputee. Han spawned a large amount of scalding hot steam around his hand, and then grabbed hold of Roshi's stump. The beast man screamed in pain as its bleeding limb was cauterized. He caught a glimpse of Han slamming the most crudely and badly made suppression seal Naruto had ever seen into the back of Roshi's head. The massive Jinchuriki leveled a glare at the second yellow flash, and picked up Roshi before quietly retreating. Alright Naota, please retreat to your uncle's city and stay there. Have this village evacuated as well. We can't afford to leave it open for attack, it's going to take a while before I can get shinobi deployed out here. It will be done, please take care Mr. Namikaze. Thank you for saving my wife. Gladly Naota, and please just call me Naruto. I've got to get going, but I'm going to leave some shadow clones to overwatch your village's evacuation. Thank you Naruto, I seriously cannot thank you enough. At this Naruto smiled and sprinted away, leaping into the trees and making his way toward Konohagakure. I've got to find out what the situation is and see what our next course of action will be. He thought to himself seriously. His brain was in overdrive wondering what kind of situations could be happening at the village, and he wanted to be at his home to help them prepare for war. What do you mean Konohamaru is missing? Settle down, the Hokage yelled, watching as the man before her let his anger get the best of him. Tsunade, we're at war and the brat is missing? On the front no less? He yelled back, his Sharingan blazing to life. Need I remind you that there isn't a war on yet? No official declarations have been made, and I've called for a cage summit. Taki is a fucking battleground. Naruto will kill me if he knew that I just stood by and didn't search. Both people stopped speaking as they heard the door handle turn and click before it swung open. Search for what? Naruto asked as he stepped into the office. Lady Tsunade, it's good to see you back at it. Thank you Naruto, and Team 12 has gone missing. Team 12, that number still left a bad taste in his mouth. After all, the members of the team from his graduating class had been wiped out right in front of him. Who are the new members? I was kind of busy during the last graduation. Sarutobi Konohamaru, Hyuga Hanabi, and Inazuka Sakumo, led by Ebisu. Kono, is missing? The blonde asked, as if testing the waters. Yes, she answered simply. She did like the child, and was worried, but she currently needed to be in full Hokage mode. I see, we'll address that soon. I have to report. Yes? Naruto proceeded to explain the events that took place over the course of his week-and-a-half-long mission, and the speedy escalation that took place the day before. So you're telling me you killed over a platoon's worth of Iwa-nin, and took on 2 Jinchuriki to a standstill? Yes ma'am, my god you're just like Minato. She grumbled aloud. You didn't chase them down, correct? No ma'am, they said the war was already on. I felt the need to come back immediately. Alongside that fact I also would prefer not to battle 2 Jinchuriki without backup. Had Roshi been able to transform, I may have been put into a very bad spot. Honestly I got lucky. At least he's humble, thought Sasuke. Understandable. Well they must have said the war was on to try to throw you off. What has happened is Iwa launched a full invasion into Waterfall Country. Takigakure shinobi held them back, but were forced into retreat after their Jinchuriki was removed from the equation. Removed from the equation? He interrupted. She was beaten down by a few members of Onoki's family. They are known for their strong earth techniques, and they had plenty of shinobi to focus solely on her. Add to that the fact that she didn't nearly have mastery over her tailed beast, and she was eventually captured. Now anyway, if you'll let me finish. She asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes ma'am. Taki Nin now hold a defensive line spanning a good chunk of Waterfall Country right at their border with us. I've called the 5-Cage Summit to try to get this resolved without a war, and get Iwa to pull their forces out of Taki. She said, the stress of the looming war obvious on her face. There's no way it's gonna work Lady Hokage, Iwa isn't just gonna back down. The only reason we haven't gone straight to war over this, is because I'm hoping I can get Iwa to back down anyway. Takigakure is our ally, and I won't allow them to get beaten down like this. Now, the Cage Summit is in 2 weeks. You and Sasuke will be my bodyguards. You've made names for yourself and it will be a blatant show of force. If we have 2 weeks, then I request a mission to find Konohamaru. I'd like to know the details behind his disappearance as well. Naruto couldn't just leave the boy he saw as a brother out there to die. Alright, you have a week and a half. Find that silly brat and bring him back. He is Sarutobi Sensei's grandson after all, and I do like the kid. She finished with a sigh. Can I bring Sasuke? Naruto requested. Considering where you're going, yes you can. She said with a solemn look. Team 12 was undergoing an escort mission to Takigakure. Why did they need our nin to do the escort? He questioned, curious as to why genin would be needed to help Taki out. Taki has been on a downhill slide as a ninja village for a while now, and they had been running low on manpower. It's a shame this all happened, because they were just now really starting to recover from the last 2 wars, and things had been finally looking up for them. Now, when the invasion started, Ebisu managed to get a message out to us informing us of the situation. We sent a force to our border immediately, but Taki had been pushed back quickly. Their village fell in 2 days. Once our shinobi mobilized and set out, they were already pushed to the border. You will be going behind enemy lines to find a needle in a haystack. This will be highly dangerous, and there is a high chance Team 12 may have been killed already. I'm gonna go see Rika, get a shower, and we can head out tomorrow. That work for you, Sasuke? HN. The Uchiha grunted in response. Also, I'd like a copy of Ebisu's report, ma'am. I'll have one delivered to you. Go see your girlfriend. Will do, ma'am. Chapter 27. The entire way back from his battle with the Jinchuriki from Iwa, Naruto had been trying to make a life-changing decision. After the shortest chat with his best friend, he decided he would do it. Flashback from literally 20 minutes before. Do you love her? Yes. Do you want to be with her forever? Yes. HN. Then do it, you dipshit. Right, thanks Ski. HN. End flashback. Honestly should have just wrote out the scene. It was early in the morning after his meeting with the Hokage, and Naruto was in a rush. His chat with Sasuke hadn't taken long, but he still didn't want to waste any time. The Junin sprinted across the rooftops, quickly making his way to the academy. Half of the kids in the classroom almost jumped when Naruto came bursting through the door. Iruka-sensei. What? God, Naruto. Settle down. What is so urgent? Whispers from the children could be heard through the room behind their conversation. Things like, wow, is that really Namikaze Naruto? And other things that would have made Iruka smile like, wait, he called him sensei. Did sensei teach Namikaze Naruto? Sensei, this is super important. I need you to take a quick break. Please, I'm super sorry to interrupt your class, but I need to talk to you for a bit. Alright Naruto, calm down. Let me go grab another sensei to watch after my class for today. Said Iruka. The man wasn't one to abandon his students, but one of his students desperately needed his help, and he wouldn't let him down. Soon Naruto and Iruka were walking down the street away from the academy, and towards the market side of Konoha. So what is this about? The teacher questioned. Iruka, I'm going to ask Rika to marry me. I know I'm only 20, but I'm sure of it. I love her dearly, and don't want to be with anyone else. I know how quickly a shinobi's life can end, and I don't want to have regrets. Naruto said with a huge grin. If you're absolutely sure, then I think you should go through with it. But you seem dead set on this, so I had to ask. What do you need me for? Iruka asked with a smile while rubbing the back of his neck. Well, it's a little off, but I need help finding the rain. I don't want to go alone, and you're my only family. He said with a smile at his teacher. Iruka looked almost shocked for a moment before smiling lightly at the blonde. This child, that had grown into an amazing young man, and an incredible ninja, was very much like a son to the older shinobi. Iruka was so very happy that the third Hokage had convinced him to teach Naruto. Lord Third, if you could see him now. They stumbled around some shops chatting and browsing. The two had a fun time looking for something they thought Rika would like. Eventually, a ring caught Naruto's eye. When he showed his mentor, he agreed as well, and now, Naruto was one step closer to having his very own family. Thank you so much for helping me with this, Iruka-sensei. You don't know how much it means to me. Of course Naruto, anytime. Iruka said, happy as always to help his student. Let's grab some ramen sensei. I'll pay, but after, I gotta go try and figure out how I'm gonna propose to her. The blonde said with a grin. Iruka chuckled before responding, we can brainstorm at the shop. As he finished, his face split with a grin of his own. Right, come on, rang the voice of the loud Namikaze as he dragged Rika out of their home by her hand. Naruto settled down. The brunette giggled. Where are you taking me? What could be so urgent? You'll find out. Just come on, he shouted with a large grin. Tell me, she said blankly but with a smile. You're so stubborn. Fine. He opened his mouth as if he was about to speak, but instead yanked her to him and wrapped his arms around her. Before she could even protest, the blonde flashed them to the top of the Hokage monument. This startled a few villagers who were on a viewing platform that looked off the mountain. They soon realized it was none other than the hero who had appeared, and they watched with quiet curiosity. Naruto. She smiled. Where have you taken me? As always, her voice was blank, but her face conveyed her feelings. We're atop the monument, no? You would be right, darling. It was dusk, and the village lights were a beautiful view. Naruto loved this spot, and knew Rika enjoyed it a lot as well. He looked out over the village before speaking. You see Rika, this village is my home. I'll protect it until my dying breath. Every single person in this village is my family, and I will treat them that way. He smiled and turned to face her. But out of everyone in this village, you are the one I truly love. I don't ever want that to change, and I want our love to be permanent, and I want it to be forever. Finally, the last Namikaze dropped to one knee and drew the ring he had purchased. Rika, will you do me the honor of being my wife? Will you be the beginning of my family and be my forever? Naruto. Her breath hitched, and her voice went high-pitched. She could hear villagers' surprise in the background. She didn't care. Her focus was on this man in front of her. He was offering to spend the rest of his life with her. He wanted to build the family he'd never had, starting with her. He wanted her. This man who was the same boy who had saved her all those years ago. Naruto, are you stupid? She asked quietly. Yes. Of course I'll be your wife. Really? Rika, I love you. I thought it might be too early but you said yes. He yelled, jumping up from his knee and picking her up. The blonde laughed happily as he spun the woman around in the air. Of course I said yes, stupid. I love you. The villagers watched with smiles and cheers and soon started clapping. He was so happy and she was just the same. The two held their embrace before Naruto abruptly flashed them back to their home. Naruto, you sense anything? The black-haired Junin inquired. No, not yet. No enemies and no friendlies. The blonde said, removing his finger from the ground and standing. The two men had been slipping past Iwa patrols for about 2 days now, and were still trying to come upon the place that Ebisu had described in his message. Naruto could only hope the team had survived, especially considering the implications of a main branch Hyuga being stuck behind enemy lines. Dusk was now taking over the day, and the pair had just come upon a small goat farm. As they snuck up to the house, Sasuke peered through the window and saw a family eating their dinner. Surprising they haven't evacuated. Thought the Uchiha. The men were stopped when they hear a gasp and a whisper. She shinobi. Instantly Naruto was behind the origin of the sound, blade to his throat. I don't want to hurt you, old man, so please be quiet. The man shook slightly, but looked up at Sasuke's face. When the man saw the Konoha headband he smiled. He spoke softly under his breath to the pair. Konohagakure shinobi? I'm sure you're here for your missing team? Yes we are, what do you know? We stayed behind as we refused to abandon our home, even with the invasion. Not soon after Iwa came through did we run into your team. They came in about 4 days ago, and were tired and beat up. We gave them food and a night's rest before we sent them off to a separate farm. We figured if we can get them through enough homes and to the border, they can escape. With this Naruto let go of the man and apologized. Mister, can you take us to where you sent them next? No, I cannot leave my family, but let me fetch you a map. I'll show you where. Thank you sir, you're saving the life of someone dear to me. It's my pleasure son. Never turn away someone in need. That's how my papa raised me. After a few minutes and a small argument the man had with what Naruto and Sasuke assumed was the man's daughter and her husband, the elderly man came back outside. Now, see here, about 10 miles east there's a small farmhouse. They are kind people, but they may have evacuated. Hopefully there's something to put you on their trail there. Thank you again mister. I promise that Iwa won't stay in your country for too long. If they won't negotiate, then we'll kick them out ourselves. Thank you son, please have safe travels, both of you. With that the pair left the man and his family. Naruto couldn't help but think about how wars like this ripped apart families made up of wonderful people like that old man. It was no wonder Jiraiya longed for peace. Naruto and his companion sifted through the wreckage of the small farmhouse. It had been burned to the ground, and they were searching for any sign of where Team 12 may have gone. The sun had set in the last hour, and the Junin would be on high alert searching in the dark. They got lucky with a bright moon and a cloudless sky. There's plenty of sign that points to them heading farther east, reported the Uchiha. Ah, good. At least we can go after them. There's signs of a battle. Lots of earth torn up from earth-style jutsu. I'd assume that's the Iwa Nin. Tons of kunai and shuriken on the ground as well. Some of it's damp. I'm pretty sure Ebisu is the only one who can use water style on the team. Naruto said, observing the battle damage. Who do you think burned the house down? The black-haired Junin questioned the blonde. He asked more out of curiosity than concern. Either Ebisu or Konohamaru. Kono knows the burning Esh Jutsu, and probably more. Naruto replied, betting on the goofy Sarutobi. I see. Sasuke replied, betting on Konohamaru then. Yeah, well let's follow this trail, it's only about a day or two old, but it looks like a chase happened. Naruto said, standing from his crouched position over some kunai embedded in the ground, and some scuffed marks leading into the forest. Right, that time frame fits with what the old man said. Hopefully we can catch up to them in time. The Uchiha replied, following after the blonde. With this the two Junin set off on the trail. They slowly investigated, stopping to pull kunai from trees as they went, trying to see if they could identify if some of them had been made in Konohagakure. The two Junin stopped as they came upon a clearing about 6 miles from the burned farm. They stopped here, maybe to rest? Naruto guessed, seeing signs of the group stopping. Some ration wrappers here and there, and some kunai on the ground. No, Sasuke replied, walking toward the base of one of the larger trees. Someone is wounded. They changed bandages here. Shit, hopefully they're still alive. The Junin said, slight worry for the team creeping into his mind. Looks like they got cornered here though. Had to fight their way out. Look at those burn marks on the ground and in the trees. Sasuke said, examining one of the marks closely, feeling the charred wood with his hand. Indeed, but they made it out. There's plenty of signs they used explosive tags to help them set the enemy back. The blonde replied as he pointed up, where the tops of some of the trees had been blown clean off in a fashion that closely resembled the controlled explosion of paper bombs. That is true. Well, let's keep going, Sasuke said, as he leapt back into the trees. The pair made steady progress following the trail, moving quickly but being thorough nonetheless. They came across 2 more places the team must have stopped and changed the bandages of the wounded member. They were running out of bandages, evident by the fact that Konohamaru's scarf was now discarded on the ground and covered in blood. Soon, there was yet another break in the trees. This time however, they were greeted with a different sight. Before the two Junin was a large mine opening. Fuck, I hope to God they didn't let Nin drive them underground. That's a death sentence, Naruto said, a small bit of frustration in his voice. Agreed, let's have a look shall we? The other man said. The pair made their way into the mine, but found the entrance blocked off from a cave in not too far in. But it wasn't what they found there that worried them, but who? Ebisu. At Naruto's shout, the eyes of a man close to death opened. Masters Uchiha and Namikaze, it's good to. He cut off as he burst into a fit of coughs. Hold on Ebisu, I can get you to a medic quick. The Junin cut off the blonde with a struggled word. No. He coughed again, blood coming up this time. The man looked beat up, but had tons of internal bleeding. The massive hole in his leg wasn't helping anything either. Blunt force trauma was an Iwa's specialty, unless they pierced you with a spear of earth. I'm already too far gone. I've been lying here for a few hours. I'm bleeding internally, and I've drained my chakra far enough that I cannot recover. Listen, Naruto, Konohamaru, and the others, they managed to escape. Please go after my students. The man was again cut off by a fit of coughs. I do not want them to die here. I did my best to keep them safe, but there were too many of them. I sent the children on a straight shot back to Fire Country. It's all right Ebisu. You did well. We'll find the brats, and I'll get them home safe. Now save your breath, it's gonna be all right. I'll have a shadow clone get you back. Thank you, Naruto. I think that I'll rest now. With that, the man who had given his all to protect his students died. Damn it, the blonde said, punching the wall of the mine shaft. Naruto, we need to get a move on. If the kids are out there alone, they don't have long. Sasuke said. Right, the blonde replied, forming 3 shadow clones. They would stay behind to seal away the deceased Junin's body and bring it back to Konohagakure for a proper burial. With this, the Junin took off at an even faster pace, intent on catching up to the children. They hauled ass in the direction that Ebisu had sent the team. Naruto hoped he could make it in time, and was almost tempted to start flashing his way forward. He knew that would be a waste of chakra, and he needed to still be cautious of an ambush. We'll find them Naruto, Sasuke stated in a calm tone. I know, thanks buddy. The blonde gave a slight smile in return as he spoke. About half an hour later, the Junin could still be found leaping through the trees. They came to a halt when they heard a loud bang and watched as smoke plumed from the trees about 4 miles in front of them. The two cast a quick glance at one another before using the body flicker to double their speed. Upon arrival, the pair were greeted with the sight of Konohamaru standing defensively over his teammates. 10 Iwa nin could be seen standing before the boy, one of them walking towards him menacingly. Another 10 sat hidden around the small clearing in the trees, no doubt making sure there was no escape. Time to die, brat, just like your sensei. Then we're going to take your little girlfriend and bring a whole new bloodline to Iwa. At this, Hanabi recoiled in fear. Naruto and Sasuke couldn't blame her for being scared. Encountering this many high-level enemy nin while still a genin would nearly break even the hardest of fresh genin. Then finally, we'll gut your dog boyfriend as well. With a quick nod to his partner, Naruto made his move. The 10 nin in the clearing suddenly found themselves surrounded and intermixed with over a dozen tri-pronged kunai. The man closest to the young Sarutobi was the first to notice. What the foo? He was cut off as one of Naruto's kunai cut clean through his throat, and blood spurted out onto the blonde and some got on the genin. The young boy's eyes widened at his role model's sudden appearance and intervention. Naruto flashed out of existence and reappeared behind 2 more of the Iwa nin. Without hesitation he buried kunai into the back of their skulls. At the same moment, a shrieking sound ripped through the air, one reminiscent of the chirping of birds. Lightning screamed through the treetops, bursting holes through the chests of half the nin up high. Naruto wasted no time, and quickly dispatched the rest of the Iwa shinobi before they even knew what hit them. In conjunction with Naruto's quick kills, Sasuke took advantage of the expert body flicker he now possessed. Naruto and Kakashi firmly believed that Sasuke was now as skilled, if not more skilled with the body flicker than even Uchiha Shisui himself. Between the speed of Naruto and Sasuke's attacks, the two of them dispatched 20 Iwa ninja in under 30 seconds. Naruto quickly crouched and placed his finger to the ground. Once he knew the area was clear, he stood and turned to the shell-shocked genin. "You guys alright? Big brother Naruto, is that really you?" Konohamaru asked with tears in his eyes. "Yeah, it's me, buddy." The blonde replied with a reassuring grin. "Naruto," he yelled as the floodgates opened. The boy leapt forward and latched onto the blonde. The young Sarutobi cried into the blonde's shirt as Naruto rubbed his back. At this moment, Sasuke dropped down from the treetops and started to console the other children. The Junin knew they needed to get the kids out of there as soon as possible, but they also knew that the children were in dire need of rest. "Alright kiddos, let's get you some rest, then we'll get you home," the blonde Junin said with a reassuring smile to the children. He and Sasuke quickly tracked down a spot to let the kids rest while they took watch. It had taken them a few hours, as they needed to calm their panic, but Team 12 finally managed to doze off. After a while, Sasuke approached Naruto. The Uchiha may be a loner, but he still got bored. "So, when's the wedding?" the man questioned. "As soon as we get back from the summit. She wants it sooner rather than later," Naruto replied. He couldn't help but smile at his soon-to-be wife. "Is she sure about that? There's a chance that any of us could die if war breaks out," the raven-haired shinobi asked. "That's why she wants it now. Live while you still can, Sasuke. Do you want any regrets when you die, or would you rather die knowing you lived a happy life?" Naruto replied, looking Sasuke in the eye. "I suppose you make a good point," the Uchiha said, ending with a grunt. Of course I do, I'm not stupid," the blonde replied with a cocky smirk. "Our childhood says otherwise," the Uchiha quipped with almost a snort. "Oh, go fuck yourself," Naruto retorted. "But seriously, didn't you want to rebuild your clan?" the blonde asked, seriousness taking over the conversation. "Yes, but this romance stuff is difficult. I'm a little too antisocial," the man admitted. "Well, what about Sakura?" Naruto offered. He knew the two had run quite a few missions together, and were quite close. I've considered it. She's strong now, much stronger than I ever thought she might be. And she's our friend, she's close to us and that builds a connection already. But, I don't know, I still have no idea," the Uchiha replied thoughtfully. "Just take her on a date, and test the waters. She's an adult just like us, I'm sure she'll understand if you two don't work out," urged the legendary 20-year-old. "Well," Sasuke started, only to be interrupted. "Just fucking do it already. Quit being a scaredy cat." Naruto demanded. Fuck you, Naruto, Sasuke said with a snort. You know I'm right, Ski. Now shut up, we've a whole damn company coming our way. Definitely Iwa Nin, their chakra feels like dirt. The blonde said, shifting into full shinobi mode. How fast? The Uchiha asked quickly. Pretty quick, they must have a sensor. They seem to know where we are. Naruto said, finger on the branch. Damn, what's the plan? He inquired, leaving the tactical decision to the blonde. Have the kids run and hold them here. Naruto said confidently. What if they get attacked on the way? The Uchiha asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. I'm gonna give Kono one of my kunai. He replied with a smirk. Alright, that works. I'll be back. Naruto quipped. Don't take too long. Sasuke replied with a grunt. Naruto leapt out of the trees and down to the ground. Quietly but swiftly he made his way to where the kids slept. He gently shook Konohamaru awake while holding his mouth closed and shushing him. After waking the other genin, he addressed them. Listen up, we've got a ton of Iwa Nin closing in fast. Me and Sasuke are going to stall them, but we can't go all out with you guys here. You need to run back to Fire Country. Friendly lines are only about 5 miles out. Stick together, help each other, and don't stop. Got it? He said, addressing the children with a highly serious tone. You're not coming with us? The small boy asked, fear creeping onto his face. I'll be right behind you, but I had to handle these guys first. Don't worry, I won't let any of my teammates die, that includes you guys now. He said with a grin. He stopped and reached into his kunai pouch. He withdrew a tri-pronged kunai that was slightly larger than usual. This is a special one of my kunai. I tweaked my formula a lot, so I can flash to it from much further away, okay? Take this with you, and if something goes wrong, flare your chakra. I'll sense it, but when you flare your chakra, you also have to push as much into this seal on the bottom as possible. He said, showing the boy an engraved seal in the ring of the kunai. He had created it so anyone on his team could use it as a beacon to get help from him. It had an effective range of 6 miles, which was well outside his sensing range and his normal teleportation range. It's special, so don't lose it, buddy. Be safe, and call me if you need me. I'll be there in a flash. Naruto finished with a wide and bright grin, reassuring all the kids that they would be safe. He then pulled Konohamaru's hand out, and opened his palm. He then gently placed the kunai in the boy's hand. Now get going. You got it, boss. Don't lose, alright? Konohamaru said quietly but with enthusiasm. Naruto's words had, as always, reassured the boy. He stuck out his fist to the older shinobi. The blonde bumped his fist off of the young Sarutobi's and replied, I never do. Naruto, they're closing in. Came the shout of the combat-ready Uchiha. Got it. Get going, brats. Naruto said sternly. With that, the brown-haired boy pushed the Inuzuka forward, who then started running. Seeing Hanabi, who even though she was no longer scared was still unmoving, Konohamaru grabbed her hand and took off with her into the trees. Sasuke, I never did ask. Did Tsunade do the transplant? Naruto questioned. Yeah, she did. Why? A look of curiosity on his face. Just wanted to know if we can count on that Susanoo and Black Fire of yours. The blonde said, his brain was running through many battle scenarios. Obviously, but I doubt we'll need it. Between the two of us, we'll mop these rockbiters up quick. The Uchiha said with confidence. Don't be so hasty. Naruto cautioned. You're no fun, Namikaze. The man quipped in return. Shut up, and don't hold back. Naruto said, with a light smile. As they bickered, a squad of Iwa Nin landed before them. Naruto could sense the rest of their company spread out through the trees. Turn back, and let us be on our way. There is no need for any bloodshed today. Fuck you, Namikaze. Your pops killed tons of our shinobi, we're gonna kill you for it. You do realize he has the same skills as his father? He can just do exactly what his father did and slaughter you. Sasuke said, internally stunned by the arrogance of the Iwa Nin. The last Uchiha too, huh? We heard there was a Hyuga, but to have a chance to grab up the Sharingan too? That's just icing on the cake. With this the Iwa Nin drew their blades, and the slaughter began. The company was made of mostly Chunin, but the squad before them were all Junin. Sasuke's eyes quickly changed, and he set the squad ablaze with the black flames of Amaterasu. Seeing their comrades die, the rest jumped into the fight. The flashing then started, and men and women began falling dead. Sasuke proved capable yet again with his body flicker, and over the course of about 6 minutes the entire company was dead, save for one last squad. They had managed to actually stay alive and fighting with the pair. The squad was made up of some of the best Anbu Iwa had ever produced. Sasuke was forced to sidestep as a massive fist of stone impacted the ground he had occupied. With a quick body flicker, he finally made his way behind the attacker and ran him through with his sword. He was caught off guard when a spear of earth skewered his target straight through and managed to stab into his own shoulder. Wrenching himself free, he rolled away as a shower of kickball-sized stones rocketed into the ground he had landed on. Meanwhile, Naruto flashed away as another hole opened in the earth, pulling everything above it in and quickly snapping shut with force. It was quite the annoying jutsu, though he supposed they could say that about his own as well. The enemy was removing his kunai from the battlefield in large numbers. He had plenty more at home, but he had neglected to bring his scroll along this time. Luckily, he did have a backup set in a storage seal on the inside of his pouch at all times. A large explosion went off that sent Naruto hurling into the air. The blonde quickly flashed away to regain sense of his surroundings, and at the same time, Sasuke joined him. "What just happened?" asked the Sharingan wielder. He'd heard the loud explosion, but hadn't seen the cause. "I dunno, the explosion came out of nowhere. Did you get any?" "Just one. 3 left then." 2 Iwa nin dropped down on each side of them, before one dropped down in the middle. The man wore a brown kasa, and had a large box strapped to his back. "I am Dojiro, part of Iwagakure's blast battalion. They sent these 2 boys with me to fish out the Konoha scum that were hiding in our new addition. This land belongs to Taki, not Iwa. We took it, so it's ours. You tree huggers aren't gonna stop us. I'm tired of this Naruto," spoke the Uchiha. His Susanoo roared to life around him. The now armored form struck fear into one of the Iwa nin. "Wah, what the hell?" Before the man could turn and run, the last Uchiha skewered him with an arrow. "Shit," yelled the man now identified as Dojiro. He flew through hand seals and silently set off a jutsu. The lid of the box on his back popped off, and a massive worm-like column of white clay shot from it, and as it sailed over the pair of Konoha nin, a large length dropped off. Meanwhile, the remainder of the column retracted back to its owner. Sasuke quickly recognized just what this white substance was. He glanced over at his friend as the Iwa man moved his hands into the snake seal. Sasuke's eyes widened as he saw that Naruto's full focus was on the last nin they faced, and the blonde was far too oblivious to the danger that had just reached them. "Naruto, teleport!" he screamed. The blonde finished parrying his attacker, and slid his blade across the man's throat. The spiky-haired man then spun around to face his friend. "Wah? Oh fuck!" The Junin was cut off when the explosive went off. It tore apart the entire clearing as the Iwa nin surrounded himself with a protective dome of stone. Everything in a half-mile radius was blown away, and most of it incinerated. "Naruto!" yelled the Uchiha, uncaring as the armor of his Susanoo was ripped away by the might of the explosion. This left Sasuke standing alone in a crater, covered in the skeleton of his Susanoo. It had all happened in under 5 seconds. "Naruto?" the Uchiha asked, disbelief in his voice. He glanced around and saw the final Iwa nin had made a hasty retreat during the blast. "Naruto, don't fuck with me," he spoke aloud. A quiet noise was heard and a flash of yellow light went off next to the last Uchiha. He spun around and saw his best friend. He was far from relieved when he saw his companion. The blonde's flak jacket had been shredded. His chest, arms, and legs were covered in burns, cuts, and shrapnel. Blood poured from a large wound on his leg. "Shit man, hey, I guess I got careless. Can't do much with speed if I don't know what's going on around me. I thought, Jiraiya beat situational awareness into me, ow. Naruto, it's gonna be alright, hang on," said Sasuke as he grabbed the blonde and began to lift him up. "How'd you survive?" "I flashed away, but I did it too late to avoid catching some of the blast." The blonde spoke through gritted teeth. Suddenly the blonde's eyes widened, and Sasuke felt him tense. "What is it?" "Konohamaru is in trouble. Hang on." With that, the two felt the sensation that came with teleportation via the flying Raijin. They appeared behind the genin and quickly took in the situation. Naruto saw a large Iwa nin standing over the Sarutobi boy, a sword poking at his chest. The man was obviously going to skewer the genin. "Don't touch him," yelled Naruto before Sasuke even had a chance to react. The blonde pushed himself out of Sasuke's grip and at the same moment flung a kunai at the Iwa shinobi. The man turned and managed to tilt his head slightly to the side and dodge the blade. The enemy grinned maniacally at the blonde and said, "Too late," as the kunai passed by his skull. With this, Naruto returned a smirk of his own, and simply replied with, "Never." The blonde, for the moment having forgotten his injuries, flashed behind the man and buried a Rasengan into the man's chest cavity. Blood squirted out, and covered some of Naruto's arm. "Big brother Naruto, you came." With a smile, the blonde looked down at the boy, but felt his strength fading. His body was using a large mix of his own chakra and the nine tails to heal his wounds. "I told you, Kono, I'll be there in a flash." With those words, Naruto collapsed from physical exhaustion. The rapid healing rate put a great deal of strain on his physical strength, along with tiring him out quickly. Sasuke caught the blonde just barely before he hit the ground. "Is he gonna be okay?" the Sarutobi boy asked in worry. "The idiot? Yeah, he'll be fine," Sasuke said with a light chuckle. "Oh good, I was worried. Alright, let's get out of here." "Right," came the response of the genin. "Congratulations on the successful rescue of Team 12, the Hokage said, addressing the Junin. She soon turned her gaze to the three genin. "I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm going to need you to recount the events of your mission." Sakumo's gaze turned to the floor, and Hanabi still looked slightly shell-shocked. Konohamaru, however, grimaced once, before looking up and staring the Hokage in the eyes. "Okay, I'll tell it. Takigakure, the day of the Iwagakure Blitz. Team, let's go." "Sensei, what's going on?" "Taki is being invaded. Come children, we need to get back to Konohagakure and inform them of what is going on." "But sensei." Konohamaru was cut off by the extremely stern and heavy voice of Ebisu. "Konohamaru, no more questions. You will do what I say, when I say it. That goes for all of you. If you don't, I have no doubt the Iwa shinobi will wipe us out. Do you understand?" He got a single reply from all three genin at once. "Yes, sensei." "Good, now let's move." After some time of rest, and a lot of stealth evasion of enemy patrols, the team had found themselves at the old man's home. He gave them food, and let them get a night's rest before sending them on their way to the next farm. Team 12 sat resting in the second farm. They had arrived at the farmhouse to find it abandoned. They made use of the home as a quick shelter for the night. Unbeknownst to the Konohagakure shinobi, a decently sized squad of Iwa nin had caught their scent just before they had found the farmhouse. Night settled over the farm, and Sakumo sat outside on lookout duty. The Inuzuka boy and his dog Kaoru had taken first watch, and were unaware of the nearby threat. Upon noticing the Inuzuka and his dog, the Iwa nin took extensive measures to hide their scent. Finally, after some more observation, the nin made their move. One launched from the trees at the boy, and only thanks to his enhanced hearing was he able to stop the attack. The boy stared the Iwa nin in the eyes as they locked blades. As they did, the dog let out loud barks, alerting the shinobi in the house. The Konoha nin were outside in seconds, and a fight broke out quickly. Ebisu launched off water jutsu, trying to attack and counter the Iwa nin. The earth ripped apart and reshaped around the team, Iwa ninja showing their aptitude for earth jutsu as always. Meanwhile, the genin exchanged kunai and shuriken with some of the other Iwa nin, the young ninja barely holding up against the enemy. Suddenly, Ebisu's voice broke through the silence. "You three, get inside." With that, Ebisu strained himself to fire off a massive version of the water wall jutsu. The river near the farmhouse and the massive amount of groundwater in the area were the only things even making this possible. At the same time, Konohamaru and Hanabi had made it in the house, but Sakumo had just started for the door. An enemy nin, seeing an opening on the Inuzuka boy, sped through hand seals. The Iwa nin let off his jutsu, and a spear of earth rocketed at the boy. At the last second, Ebisu appeared, and tackled the boy through a window. The spear of earth rammed through the man's thigh, but the earth broke away without stopping their momentum. Ebisu rolled through the window, boy and dog in hand, and was greeted with Konohamaru and Hanabi. The man quickly bandaged his wound, before he motioned for the team to follow him. As they made their way to the front of the farmhouse, 3 Iwa nin came busting through the windows in the back. A quick-thinking Konohamaru filled the house with ash, and as Ebisu ripped the boy from the home, he ignited it with his teeth. The resulting fireball blew the house apart, and roasted the Iwa shinobi. This all took place over the course of a minute. Ebisu's team rushed into the tree line and made a run for it. About 6 miles into the forest, they stopped to change Ebisu's bandages. Hanabi helped their sensei rewrap his leg, and the boys set up some explosive tags in the trees. They were soon attacked again by Iwa shinobi, and Konohamaru once again managed to hold them back by using his ash as a trap. The team took to the trees again, and the boys set off the explosive tags as the enemy made to follow them. They blazed their own trail through the forest, stopping to bandage their sensei's still bleeding wound twice more. Konohamaru was worried, as they had just used up their last bandage. Soon they were forced to make a third stop. Ebisu was losing quite a lot of blood, and it was starting to affect him. Konohamaru removed his scarf, and used it to replace the blood-soaked bandages on his teacher's leg. Continuing on, the group finally came to a break in the trees. Here, they were greeted with the sight of a mine, and they could tell the Iwa nin were close. Ebisu, thinking quickly, formed 3 shadow clones, and had them transform into the children. This used up quite a lot of his chakra, and Ebisu found himself close to his limit. Add on the blood loss, and things weren't looking good. The sensei turned to his students, and crouched down in front of Konohamaru. He looked at his student in the eye and smiled. "I was happy to be a sensei to all of you. Look," he said, pointing off in the direction of the Taki, Konoha border. "Head that way, and don't stop, alright? Stay together, and don't give up. I'll lead them away, and buy you time. I'll be right behind you after I deal with them." "Sensei." Ebisu interrupted the boy before he could finish. "Konohamaru, that's an order. Be strong and look after your teammates." "Why, yes, sensei." "Good, now go." With that, the children ran off into the woods, and Ebisu sent the shadow clones down into the mine as soon as the Iwa nin broke the tree line. With the shadow clones as bait, and Ebisu himself there to stall, he could only hope the genin would make it back to the border. As the children ran off, they heard Ebisu shout at the enemy, "I won't let you harm them." The children ran through the woods for a while, and eventually a large group of nin must have gotten past Ebisu, or avoided him completely, because they caught up. This is where Naruto and Sasuke found them, and the story of Team 12 ended. "And that's when Naruto showed up and saved us," Konohamaru said as he finished recounting his story. "I see. Thank you for explaining," the Hokage responded. "Now, Naruto, you said you were injured? Looks like you healed up fine?" "Ah yes, Sasuke and I stopped off at the border. The spot you set up a support effort to help Takigakure fight Iwa is impressive. Tsunade had sent a guard group, and a group of medical nin to the border to help treat Takigakure's wounded. Sakura healed me up. She's an impressive medic nin now. They're doing good work down there. I'm glad to hear that. Well now, Team 12 will have to be put on the back burner until we can find you a new sensei." She was cut off when the door opened and in walked an angry Hyuga clan head. "It's obvious my daughter was not assigned a strong enough sensei to protect her. What do you?" Suddenly the man was cut off by Naruto. "I ask you not to disrespect the sacrifice Ebisu made to keep these children safe." "Hang out for a minute, Lord Hyuga, I think you'll want to hear this," he said to the clan head before turning back to the Hokage. "Ma'am, I hereby officially request that Team 12 be rebranded as the new Team 7. I will be their sensei." Chapter 28. "Ma'am, I hereby officially request that Team 12 be rebranded as the new Team 7. I will be their sensei," Naruto said, the confidence evident in his stature. The Hokage's jaw dropped. "You want to make them your genin team? I'm sure I can keep them all safe, and I see potential in these brats," the blonde said with a confident smirk. Meanwhile, the children, the clan head, and even Sasuke stared at him in shock. It had also blown away the Hokage as well. The last thing she had expected from Naruto was that he offered to take a genin team. Furthermore, with the possibility of war looming on the horizon, they should have a sensei that can keep them safe even on the battlefield if need be. "This would be sufficient in my expectations for the new sensei, Lady Hokage," spoke the clan leader. "Naruto does have a way with kids. Maybe I should take a team as well," Sasuke said, surprising the whole room. "I'll have to consider it." The Hokage quickly got over her shock at the Uchiha's words, and turned her gaze to the blonde. Very well, Team 12 will be rebranded as Team 7, and will have Junin Namikaze Naruto as their sensei. Awesome, yelled Konohamaru. Settle Kono, Naruto said in a commanding tone. Now, for the record, if war does break out, unless we have a severe shortage of manpower like we did in the Third War, Genin will not participate in any missions involving the war. Yes ma'am, understood. The blonde spoke. That means you'll be away from your team quite a lot, Naruto, and if this goes down, you're going to play an important role. The Hokage said, clarifying how this would be for the blonde Junin. Yes ma'am. Will there be anything else today? He asked. As much as the man didn't mind his shinobi duties, he still wanted to get home to his fiancée. No, that's all, you may all be dismissed. Hiyashi, please stay, I'd like a word with you. She finished, motioning for the clan head to take a seat. With that, Naruto, Sasuke, and the new Team 7 left the cage's office. The Junin turned to look at each other, and Naruto broke the silence. See ya around, you know, he said with a smile before holding out his fist to his friend. HN, replied the mostly stoic Uchiha, bumping his fist off Naruto's before walking away. Naruto watched his friend leave, before he turned to his new team. Alright guys, meet me at Training Ground 7 tomorrow, alright? Yes sensei, the three replied. At this, the Namikaze smirked at them, before disappearing in a flash of yellow. Rika stood in the kitchen humming to herself. She was cooking a meal, and she had heard Naruto had returned from his mission. She had come back from her own mission the day before, a quick document delivery to Sunagakure. She liked Tsunae a lot, but would always rather be home in Konohagakure. She was starting to feel lonely without Naruto, but as always he continued to find new ways to surprise her. Only this time his surprise was flashing into existence right in front of her, and shocking her so much that she dropped the stew pot she held. Her jaw dropped at the sight of her lover, and she stood for a moment with a shocked expression before finally smiling. You're back, she said, in her standard monotone. Looks that way, doesn't it? The blonde said with an amused grin. He then motioned to the ground and quipped at his fiancée. You made a mess. Only because you decided to scare me. You can clean it up. She retorted with a smirk. Ah, do I have to? The blonde whined, before pulling off his flak jacket. He always kept multiple sets of clothing and a few replacement flak jackets in a storage scroll on his missions. No, have a shadow clone do it, you dolt. She said blankly, but with an amused smile while walking over to the kitchen table. Ah, Rika, how could you? You wound me so, he said with a fake frown. Oh hush, how was your mission? She said dismissively, before asking about his adventure. I brought Kono back, but it didn't really go that well. Sadly Ebisu was killed, and I may or may not have gotten hurt a little. Add on to that Sasuke and I had to kill a lot of Iwa Nin. Naruto said while trying to skim over the fact he had been injured. You were wounded? She asked with concern, instantly singling out that fact. I kind of got exploded, he said while scratching at his cheek. Rika stared at him, worry showing heavily on her face. He moved with his ridiculous natural speed, and grabbed her by the waist. He leaned her down, as if they had just finished a long dance, and planted his lips on her own. Finally, the blonde pulled away and spoke. I'm fine, Rika, really. It wasn't that bad. I just caught the tail end of the blast. Sakura fixed me up to tip-top shape at the border. You need to be more careful, she said blankly, but she couldn't hide the bright blush that burned her cheeks from the sudden kiss. I know, it was entirely my fault. I was too focused on what was in front of me, and I got arrogant. I underestimated the enemy. That's something Jiraiya-sensei taught me to never do. The blonde said looking down. Naruto, you're an extremely powerful shinobi, just like your father and your sensei. But you and I both know that even the slightest mistake will get even the best shinobi killed. She said, reaching up and cupping his cheek. I love you, and you made a promise to return to me. And you're not exactly the type to break a promise, right? Yes ma'am, that's correct. The man replied with a loving smile. Good, she said before stepping away into the closet. She came back out seconds later and shoved a mop into his hands. Now clean up that mess, she said blankly. After having found out his team had not completed the water walking exercise, he had quickly instructed them to do just that. The team of children got to work, and he explained to them that he wanted it done by the time he got back from the cage summit. The blonde, however, did secretly ask Kakashi to watch over them while he was gone, and step in to help them if necessary. With that, the blonde and his raven-haired friend departed Konoha with the Fifth Hokage. They soon begin their journey to the Land of Iron. The samurai there had agreed to host it, as it was a neutral country, and the samurai had no interest in fighting in shinobi wars. However, they didn't wish to see another shinobi war break out, hence the summit. Naruto and Sasuke were well aware of what could happen at this summit. Best case scenario, negotiations would go well and Iwe would pull out of Taki, and the shinobi world could avoid another war. Worst case scenario, a full-scale battle between the Kage could break out at the summit. Luckily enough, Naruto and Sasuke were strong enough to compete at that level. Naruto knew Tsunade was feeling the pressure. She knew the things she said at this meeting could mean the difference between war and peace. Naruto and Sasuke were well aware of the fact that they hadn't helped the case for peace. They were both responsible for the deaths of over 3 dozen Iwe shinobi. However, Iwe had killed a Konohagakure Junin and hunted a Genin team. Add to it they forced Naruto and Sasuke to fight them, and were given plenty of opportunity to not engage in combat. Eventually, Naruto put these thoughts far from his mind. It was time to focus on the task at hand. He knew his duty: protect the Hokage at all costs. He wasn't that worried, however. An Uchiha, a Senju, and an Uzumaki who was the son of one of the most legendary Kage to ever live, was nothing to scoff at. They all entered the room, everyone tense. With the world so on edge, the leaders all sat in difficult positions. They were greeted finally by the leader of the Land of Iron. Thank you all for coming. I am happy to host this summit as a neutral party. I ask that no hostile actions happen here. Anything you can't settle here you can handle in your own lands. Mifune said as he greeted the 5 Kage. Now, if you will all please have a seat. The Kage all got themselves situated, and the room went quiet. Old Onoki stared down the blonde with anger and contempt in his eyes, and the Raikage looked at him with caution. The red-headed Mizukage sat quietly, watching the tension form in the room. Gaara looked calm and collected as always, clearly waiting for someone else to start. Naruto watched as his own Kage leaned forward and rested her elbows on the table, while folding her hands together and resting her chin in them. Mifune broke the silence finally. Lady Hokage, maybe you should start, considering you called this summit. Yes, thank you Mifune. I'm sure you all already know why I've called you all here. Iwe has invaded our ally Takigakure. In an effort to avoid another war, I've called you here to attempt to negotiate your immediate withdrawal from Waterfall Country, she said, staring down Onoki with intensity. The old man unexpectedly leapt forward in his seat and shoved a finger out at Naruto. You dare to come to the negotiation table with that man in tow? Yes, I do. Naruto is extremely skilled, and I saw no reason not to bring him along, she said with a glare. He and his father have slaughtered my nin. I should kill him here, the man yelled in anger. Sasuke had to force himself to hold back a snort at the words of the Kage. Are you threatening me, Onoki? She asked with a serious tone. He killed my nin. Each word was accented by the man's fist impacting the table. And your nin killed one of mine. Add to that they hunted a Genin team relentlessly through Takigakure. Genin, not Chunin or Junin, fresh Genin, she said, countering the old man's argument. What reason do I have to pull out of Taki? He said, sitting back and crossing his arms like an angry child. Preventing another war. Taki is our ally, and we will back them in any conflict. I simply came here to give you the opportunity to spare the world from another war. Is it true that you've invaded Takigakure unprovoked? Questioned Mifune. I too would like to know if this is true. Spoke up the Mizukage, taking an interest in the situation. Taki shinobi had been crossing into our borders repeatedly, and had been skirmishing with our ninja. I simply took action. You stomped your way in thinking Konoha didn't have the might to retaliate. Tsunade said with a raised voice. This man was starting to piss her off. I find it hard to believe a minor nation would attempt to anger one of the big 5 out of nowhere. Can you prove this? Inquired the other female Kage. Other than eyewitnesses, I cannot. The elder man replied. Kumo is inclined to believe Onoki's claims. I have nin who witnessed this themselves. The Raikage chimed in. You, said Tsunade, turning to the large man. You're not free of guilt either. Don't think I don't know about your nin snooping around the border of the Land of Hot Water. The Raikage almost recoiled at this accusation, but managed to hide his surprise. I assure you I have no idea what you are talking about. Mifune's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the Raikage. The land of hot water has always been a neutral country. Not once have they participated in a war. I most certainly have not had. I will send a samurai messenger and ask the leader of the land of hot water herself," said Mifune, interrupting the large man. Finally, the case cage chose his time to chime in. "I'm not one for accusations, but since we're at it, our ally, the land of bears, has informed me of multiple trespassings by Iwagakure." "Boy, are you even of an age where you can know what you speak of?" called out Onoki. "I assure you Gaara might be one of the most capable kage I have seen in my life." Tsunade interjected. "Thank you, Lady Hokage." Gaara replied with a smile and a nod. Mifune interrupted, and put the summit back on track. "This is not what this summit was called for. We are here to discuss the matter of Takigakure, first and foremost. Lord Tsuchikage, what would you require to pull your forces out of Takigakure peacefully?" "HMPH, lives for lives maybe? And monetary compensation for the deaths of my shinobi." Tsunade narrowed her eyes at the old man. "Lives for lives? Sacrifice your shinobi, so I can bring peace to their families, and pay for the expenses the families may encounter now." The man finally made a demand, no matter how outlandish it may be. "Who are you implying I sacrifice?" "The Namikaze." At this, a clink echoed in the background as Sasuke gripped his sword. Naruto just stood calmly, leaning against the wall. "And the Uchiha?" That got the blonde's attention, and in response he drew a kunai and began twirling it around his finger by the rein. "Excuse me?" the Hokage asked. She couldn't believe the nerve of this man. "I would be happy to talk terms with the monetary situation if it could possibly avoid a war, but you're demanding the deaths of two of my most talented shinobi?" "Indeed I am, they are single-handedly responsible for the deaths of my shinobi. No other Konoha has made any aggressive acts towards Iwa but these two." Tsunade had had enough. She stood from her seat and the entire room went tense. She waved a single hand, and Naruto and Sasuke walked up to her sides. "Onoki, remove your forces from Taki, or I will remove them myself. You've come here with an obvious agenda, and I won't stand for the outlandish demands." "Do you want a war, Tsunade?" "No, but if I must fight one to keep my allies safe, then I will." Now I'm sure." Mifune was cut off. "I'm sorry Lord Mifune, I don't mean to disrespect you like this, but I will be leaving now. We're done here. I thank you for your hospitality." Tsunade spoke. The Raikage broke the table they sat at in anger, but before he could speak he was interrupted by the blade of Mifune's sword in his face. "There will be no shinobi battle in my country. I came here to try to give the world a chance to rest from war a bit longer. Honestly, I should have declared war the minute you invaded Takigakure," she said, staring down the Tsuchikage. "I apologize for wasting your time Lord Mifune. Lord Cage, would you like to come along?" she asked, turning her head to Gaara and his siblings. With a nod, the Cage stood, and walked over to the Hokage. Naruto set his hand on Tsunade's shoulder, and Sasuke did the same on the other side. Gaara stood next to Naruto, and the blonde put his hand on the Cage's shoulder as well. The redhead then did the same to his brother, who mimicked the action with his sister. "It's quite alright, I'm sorry it had to end this way Tsunade," the leader of Iron Country said. "So am I," she said sadly. "Let's go Naruto." Now, with a simple flex of his chakra to show off to the enemy, the blonde flashed all 6 shinobi out of the room. Onoki's teeth ground together at the sight of the plight of his existence. "Lord Raikage, I do hope you will join me in this war?" "Gladly Lord Tsuchikage. Keep your war away from my village," said the Mizukage before she stood and quickly left the building. "Thanks for coming Gaara, sorry it was a waste of time," Naruto said, shaking the hand of the redhead. "I couldn't just ignore a Cage summit," he replied with a smile. "It wasn't a waste of time either, yourself and Sasuke taught me a lot, and I'm always happy to visit the both of you. I guess it's not that bad running into you sometimes," comment the Sharingan Wilder. "Good to see you too Uchiha." Gaara replied, he'd figured out the hidden meaning to most of Sasuke's comments during their last interaction. We must be on our way now. It seems we must prepare our villages for war," the young Cage said solemnly. "It was good to see you, Lady Hokage." "You as well, Lord Cage," the blonde woman replied. With this the 6 separated, and they began making their way home. The villages would soon be at war, and they had to be prepared. Tsunade almost laughed, thinking about how much the two Naras in the command structure would go on about the war being a drag. Tsunade, I want in on the first force headed to Takigakure. Naruto said calmly. You have a genin team now, you're Respo. I know, and I will take care of the children, but for now I want to save as many lives as possible in the opening days of the war. Naruto said stubbornly after interrupting her. Fine, be that way, she huffed. Tsunade, will you be coming to the wedding? He asked, looking away and scratching his cheek. The woman smacked the Junin in the back of the head and laughed loudly. Of course, I wouldn't miss it in a million years. Thank you, he replied with a smile. He then turned to his best friend and grinned. You're not gonna chicken out, are you, best man? I know Sakura and you are coming as a pair. The blonde said teasingly. After the death of Ryuko, Sakura and Rika had become very close. Due to Rika's time being commonly spent with Naruto, she saw a lot of Sakura, so they hung out all along even when he had left. This resulted in Sakura being the maid of honor. Sasuke glared at his friend for the teasing, but replied nonetheless. Of course I won't, idiot. Good. The blonde was beaming and very excited. Rika would soon be his bride, and it filled him with happiness. Hey, Iruka-sensei? Naruto asked almost nervously. What's up, Naruto? Is something wrong? The teacher asked. He and the blonde sat at their favorite ramen shop, and they had been talking for over an hour. The teleporting shinobi had sought out his former instructor as soon as he'd gotten back from his mission to the Cage Summit. Rika was off on a mission of her own, and hadn't been there when he'd arrived home. Will you, well. The Namikaze managed to spit out. Damn it, why can't I ask him something so simple? I doubt he'd turn me down, right? The blonde thought to himself. Naruto, whatever it is, it's fine to tell me. Finally Naruto sighed aloud and turned to face one of the people who had shaped who he was today. Iruka-sensei. Will you attend the ceremony as my father? To say the Chunin was shocked would be an understatement. You want me to take that spot? He asked in disbelief. Yes, I'm sure I want it to be you, and I think my dad would approve as well. There's no one else in the world I would want to take his spot in the wedding but you. The blonde replied with a light smile. Naruto. Of course I will. You can count on me. Thank you, Iruka. I'm not gonna write the wedding. I've been to plenty, and as important and symbolic as they are, they're feckin' boring. Naruto was found in the kitchen, cooking himself and his new wife breakfast. He had a wide smile, but on the inside something had him feeling down. With the Fourth Shinobi World War about to kick off, the blonde and his brunette bride would have to postpone their honeymoon until the war was won. This saddened the two as well, due to the fact that no one knew how long this war might be. He smiled at the thought of his wedding. It wasn't too large of a ceremony, but all of his friends had attended, as did his new genin. The daimyo and his nephew had also come, the blonde now being quite close friends with the feudal lord. The blonde finished cooking, and made his way toward the bedroom to wake his wife. Along the way, he stopped and glanced over at a photo. He smiled at the grinning faces of his mother and father. His hand reached out, and lifted the photo from its resting place. Mom, Dad. I found a wonderful woman, and I've made her my wife. I have a family of my own now. I hope you are proud of me. Thank you for giving me this life. I'll protect my family and my village at all costs. The blonde felt his heart clench at the absence of his parents, but smiled nonetheless. The Junin placed the photo back down, and entered his bedroom. There he observed the beautiful sleeping form of Namikaze Rika. His smile grew wider at the sight of her, and he moved to the bed. He leaned down, and kissed her, stirring the woman from her sleep. Naruto? She asked sleepily. That's me. Come on now, it's time to wake up. I made breakfast. With a groan, the beautiful female cracked open an eye to look at her husband. Okay, I'll be out in a minute, she said while stretching her arms and yawning. Alright, don't take too long though or it will get cold, he said. The blonde started to walk out of the bedroom, only to be stopped by her words as he reached the doorway. I love you, Naruto, the brunette said groggily. And I love you, Rika, came his reply, followed by a light chuckle. A few minutes later, Naruto was greeted with a wonderful sight. Rika stepped through the doorway to the kitchen, clad in only her underwear and one of Naruto's standard Konoha uniform shirts. It was one of his many black shirts. He kept a few blue ones like that of which his father wore, but most were black. The girl stepped through the doorway rubbing her eyes and attempting to wake herself up. She sat down at the table with a yawn and smiled at her lover. "Thank you for the food," she said. The blonde just stood by the counter for a minute, drinking a cup of coffee and watching the wonderful woman he had married. Finally, he too sat down and began eating. "So I'm going to test my genin skills in full today. Would you like to come along?" She smiled at him, but shook her head in the negative. "I'd like to, but I desperately need to finish painting the room upstairs. I've put it off for much too long after starting it. With the war beginning soon, I probably won't have any time to do so." "Ah yes, I forgot you started that. I haven't been upstairs in a while, but I suppose I spend most of my time in our bedroom, my study, or the kitchen, and that's all downstairs." "What color did you decide on again?" the blonde asked, attempting to remember on his own. "Gray," she said blankly. "Ah, I remember now. From the one wall you did finish, I remember that it looked pretty good," he replied with a smile. She grinned back at him before replying, "I like how it turned out. I'm actually quite excited to finish it." "Well, if I'm back soon enough, I'd love to help dear," the blonde offered. "I would enjoy that," she said, her eyes shining but her voice flat. Perfect. The couple finished their breakfast, and soon, Naruto was at the door with Rika standing with him. He leaned down and kissed her as he pulled on his Junin vest, and smiled at her as he zipped it up. She smiled back at him and said, "Don't hurt them too badly now." "I'll be gentle, you have nothing to worry about, you know," he replied with a thumbs up. "Good. Now go, they're waiting," she said, pushing him out the door. I love you too." With that he leaned forward and kissed her once more, before disappearing in a flash of yellow. "All you have to do is take these bells from me," he said with a soft smile. "That's all?" the Inuzuka boy asked, dumbfounded. "Yup, I want to see if you're worth it as a team." Naruto snickered inwardly. He knew it wasn't nearly as easy as they thought. This would be the first time the blonde man would have a mock battle with them, as he had only friended the group before. "Alright, let's do this," Konohamaru yelled, punching his fist into his palm. Hanabi nodded her head in agreement. "Yeah, let's get this done," she said confidently. "Seems she's broken out of the shell shock she had, good." Naruto thought to himself, smiling. "Alright, let's begin. Come at me with the intent to kill, or you won't stand a chance. The test starts now." As soon as the Junin finished his sentence, the genin scattered. He smiled to himself. At least they knew not to do something dumb like stand in the middle of the clearing and yell at him or something. He walked to the tree in the center of the clearing, and leaned against it, crossing his arms. Unbeknownst to the genin observing him, he'd placed his finger against the tree. Being a censor, and a skilled one at that, Naruto knew exactly where each genin was. He smiled, and pulled out a book. Unlike his own team sensei, Naruto's book was not smut. It was, however, one of Jiraiya's books. He held in his hands the full production print of Jiraiya's final book. A book the sage had finished writing only a day before his death. The tale of the prodigal son. Does he really take us so lightly? Thought the genin unanimously. But he did wipe out a ton of enemy shinobi. Sensei is strong. Hanabi quickly used her Byakugan to find her teammates. She made her way to Sakumo first and dragged him off to find Konohamaru. Once they had regrouped, they decided they would need to test the waters. All of the genin performed the clone jutsu, sending the clones formed by the Academy Jutsu to attack Naruto. Naruto smiled at the clones, having known from the chakra levels exactly what they were. The genin were thrown off guard when Naruto didn't even flinch as all the clones leapt at him, kunai bared. They all dispersed at contact with his body, and the genin were shocked at his unflinching demeanor. "First test, ninjutsu," Naruto yelled out. If that was what they wanted, he would provide. "Wind style. Gale palm," Naruto said, announcing his technique to the genin. He pumped just enough chakra into it to rip some of the smaller branches out of the trees in which the genin hid. "Shit," the young Sarutobi exclaimed as he and his friends were blasted out of their perch in the trees. The boy fell to the ground, and had all the air knocked out of him when the Hyuga girl landed on his chest. The Inuzuka landed safely, but was filled with pain as his pup landed on his most precious place. "Kaoru, watch where you're landing," came the pained voice of the feral child. "Sakumo, Konohamaru, get up," Hanabi yelled at them. Right, they had found enough time to plan a strategy, and took up positions around the clearing. Of course the brash Sarutobi lead the charge. Bursting from the trees he threw a barrage of kunai at the blonde, who simply deflected them with his own. Konohamaru smirked when one kunai dug into the tree behind the namikaze, causing Naruto to look at him with curiosity. Of course the Junin had noticed the explosive tag attached to the kunai, but ignored it, intending to see what their plan was. Suddenly, the blast rocked the clearing, and for a moment Konohamaru was worried he had killed his sensei, as the blonde had disappeared. He flickered behind the genin, intent on still giving him a chance. Usually I'd say, second test, genjutsu. Unfortunately I'm useless at that, so I'm gonna let you go this time. He grinned at the boy as he turned around, and launched him away with a kick, sending him careening into the Hyuga who had just left the tree line. Kono, she yelled, but was cut off as the larger boy hit her. It wasn't hard, but definitely enough to send them both tumbling. No battle plan survives contact with the enemy. Naruto stated coolly, his voice ringing out over the clearing. We haven't got all day, but go back in the trees and I will wait. I want to see what you guys can come up with. He wanted to see what they were capable of doing with their minds. He knew that a shinobi could have all the power in the world, but without the proper ability to strategize in the moment, it would be useless. If the team made no progress today, he would have to start from the very basics, instead of where Ebisu may have left off. After about 20 minutes, the blonde noticed their locations shifting, so it's time. He thought, alright, let's see what you've got. Naruto was flabbergasted when the ground before him burst away, and the Inuzuka's dog burst from the ground, spinning at a rapid rate. I guess I spaced the dog. A four-man team then. He easily sidestepped the attack, his natural speed completely outclassing the puppies. He turned to catch the dog, but was forced to dodge again, as Tsukumo barreled toward him. They'd managed to get him to ignore them for a split second, whether it was intentional or not. He reached out, and stopped the boy mid-spin by the leg, which blew the boy's mind. He swung the boy around, intent on hitting Konohamaru who he had noticed made it in close. As the boy impacted his friend, the female of their team came decently close to actually laying a finger on the blonde. She made for a palm strike to his calf, but was sent to the ground when he swept her leg out from under her. By then, their plan actually managed to come into play. Konohamaru managed to let out a cloud of ash as Tsukumo grabbed him and jump away. At the same time, the small pup managed to yank away Hanabi. As soon as their teammate was clear, Kono clicked his teeth and set off the blast cloud. Hanabi, due to her eyes, barely caught a glimpse of the kunai that rocketed out of the cloud as it was set off. Therefore, she managed to warn her team. They caught sight of the blade stabbing into the wood of a tree, and were surprised at the flash of yellow that Naruto appeared in. They knew he was fast, but seeing it was still impressive. He smiled at them, but was surprised himself when the entire tree line of the clearing lit up with explosive tags. They had the dog plant them? Naruto thought in surprise. Tsukumo had a smile on his face as Naruto saw the boy's hand come apart after having set off the tags. The blast went off, and Naruto teleported back to the center. Wah! Came the surprised voice of Tsukumo as Naruto appeared beside him. Mediocre. Third test. Taijutsu, he said, leaping away from them. No teleports, nothing funny. Just come at me and show me what you got. At this the feral boy leapt into action, his companion meeting him in the air as they barreled forward with their clan's jutsu. Naruto dodged the combo, sliding around the genin with ease. Before he could do anything however Hanabi leapt into the fold, using her gentle fist, and attempting to strike her new teacher. Naruto, with his ridiculous speed, caught her by the wrist and flipped her off her feet. As soon as he let her go, it was the third's grandson who came after him. The young boy launched into the air, attempting to come down with a solid right hook. The Junin smiled in return, and sidestepped the strike, smacking the genin in the head as he passed. I hate to rile them up, but it's time to see how they handle stress. The blonde thought to himself with a sigh. He quickly put on his most uncaring tone and spoke. You guys are terrible shinobi. You should have never made genin, he said, spewing a blatant lie. Seeing he hadn't struck a chord, he said something that hurt to say, but he had to see how well these kids could handle their emotions. I would have thought Ebisu would do better as a teacher, seems he didn't teach you squat. What? How dare you? Ebisu sensei was an amazing teacher. He gave his life for us. How dare you insult him, big brother Naruto? I thought you were better than this. Konohamaru yelled, leaping to his feet. Tsukumo and Hanabi soon joined him, yelling their own collection of obscenities and insults at the blonde. He looked at them blankly, letting them yell. He had expected better from them, but he understood. Either way, it would be helpful for them to let any anger relating to their late sensei out on him. Finally, the three stopped yelling, running out of things to say. Well, don't you have anything to say for yourself? Konohamaru asked, his anger showing its teeth. At this, the blonde motioned for the three to follow him. They were angry, but they followed the yellow-haired Junin nonetheless. He brought the children to a location he would sometimes visit. Kakashi had taught him a lesson here that he would never forget. The young legendary ninja sighed and finally spoke. Here, on this stone, we engraved the names of the heroes of Konohagakure. Heroes. I want my name on that stone then too. Konohamaru said. No, you don't. The names on this stone are of shinobi who had all fallen in the line of duty. Oh, the young boy said, shutting up. Here lie the names of many great shinobi. All of the Hokages, many legendary nin, including my master, Jiraiya of the Sannin. The fourth Hokage, my dad. The third Hokage, your grandfather. He said, ending with his eyes solely on Kono. He then turned to Hanabi. Your uncle's name is here as well, he made a great sacrifice. Hanabi looked at the ground at this, having a basic understanding of the whole incident. Finally he turned to Tsukumo. Many of your clansmen's names rest on this stone, along with their ninkin. Even your namesake, Hitaki Tsukumo. Naruto said. He had asked the boy's parents, and they had told him they did indeed name their boy after the legendary shinobi. He reached out, running his fingers over the names of his parents. His hand drifted down the stone, and he ran over Ryuko's name. Once again, his hand drifted and finally settled on Ebisu's. Your previous sensei's name is here as well. Ebisu made an ultimate sacrifice for you. I lied when I spoke of him. I have the utmost respect for the man, he was a wonderful sensei. He taught you well, and you all have potential to be splendid shinobi. Why would you lie to us, sensei? I was seeing how well you could handle stress. I know it sucks, but it is extremely important for a shinobi to stay calm and focused. You didn't handle it well, but I also knew you had some very bottled up emotions inside you over the whole incident. As a shinobi, it's important to let these things out. You're going to kill many enemies. You will kill in the name of your village, your country, and your Hokage. But it's important not to blur the line and become a sick monster. There are ninja out there who kill innocent people whenever they can, and butcher others for their own gain. Is this what it means to be a shinobi? Asked Tsukumo, fear creeping into his voice. Naruto patted the boy on the head, and crouched down to his level. No, a shinobi is one who endures. He stood and smiled. In this world, those who break the rules are trash. The children's eyes widened, but before they could come up with anything to say, the blonde spoke again. But those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. The children all stared back at their sensei, stunned by his words. He smiled at them and sat down, unsealing a large lunch. He handed the food out to the kids, and told them to eat. Congratulations, you are now the new Team 7. Live up to it, alright? Yes sir, they said cheerfully. Now, what I just taught you, it's a lesson you better take to heart. The children smiled and nodded at him while eating. Alright, eat up quick. We're gonna have another go. Your teamwork is really good, and I want to see what else you can do. I have to know what you've already learned so I know where to start with each of you. I've got a good idea of what you're capable of already, but there's always more to see. We're gonna beat you this time, sensei. Tsukumo said. Yeah, agreed Hanabi. The Sarutobi boy smiled widely before he spoke. You're going down, boss. After a long day of mock battles against their sensei, the children were sent home. Naruto gave them all low-ranked jutsu scrolls to study, and also started them on the basics teamwork-based tactics. He told them all to practice over the next week, and to ask Iruka for help if they needed it. He informed them that he may be gone for a while. The Namikaze was happy that Konoha didn't need to deploy genin in this war. Well, for now at least. Naruto knew that that fact could change in a day. The Junin had witnessed the massacre of Konohagakure forces when they had been lured into Otogakure after all. The blonde man hoped that nothing like that might occur during this war. In 2 days' time, Konohagakure would go to war with Iwa over the invasion of Takigakure. He would be in the leading forces in the operation to take back Taki. He hoped he wouldn't have to watch any of his comrades die, but he knew the world was a cruel place. The son of the fourth was scared. Not fear of battle or being killed, but scared for the future. He was scared for his country, his village, and his family. He couldn't help but think of his wife, and what the future could hold for them. He would fight for the right for the children of Konohagakure and the world, to not grow up in wartime, like Kakashi-sensei once had. The blonde shinobi laid down with his sleeping wife in bed, and closed his eyes with one final thought. I'll protect everyone I can. And I will win this war. And that concludes part 3 of this story. Thank you for spending your time here at Ichiraku Ramen and listening all the way to the end. Your support helps keep these stories alive and allows the shinobi world to continue through new adventures and alternate timelines. If you enjoyed The Son of Two Heroes, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. Once again, full credit goes to Darling in the Fox, the original writer of this story. If you would like to read the original version, you can find the link to the story in the description below. Let me know in the comments what story you would like to hear next. Until the next time, stay safe, and I'll see you again at Ichiraku Ramen.